Chapter 156. Ho Fei cannot move, but this does not prevent him from using his holy sense to see everything around him. At the moment he can see clearly that Qin Yu is charging recklessly at Di Long, who is the first to attack him. Ho Fei knows how powerful Qin Yu and Di Long are. Big brother, don't big brother. Ho Fei is so anxious that he is about to cry. The demonic elemental energy in his whole body vibrates unceasingly. However, the demonic elemental energy released by Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon is really too powerful. In fact, Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon both estimated Ho Fei's power before releasing an appropriate amount of demonic elemental energy to bind Ho Fei. Hearing Ho Fei's voice in his mind, Qin Yu slightly raises the corners of his mouth. The light in his eyes becomes even more resolute. That flickering, shocking look in his eyes is the same as the one in Qin Yu's eyes when he died together with Wu Xing for the sake of his father. Qin Yu does not have many friends, but as long as he recognizes someone as his brother or friend, he will risk his life for his brother. Ho Fei die. Di Long's huge dragon body charges extremely fast at Ho Fei. However, he suddenly notices that not far from him, a dazzling golden light is charging at him extremely fast. At first glance, that golden light looks like a burning Lu Xing. Di Long is shocked. Qin Yu. Sweeping with his holy sense, Di Long discovers that it is Qin Yu. He is immediately overjoyed. In an instant, a hint of cruelty appears on his face. Fight Di Long head on? Qin Yu is basically no match for Di Long in his true form. Qin Yu knows this very well in his heart. However, at the moment Qin Yu basically has no time to shrink back. Once he does so, Di Long's single horn will pierce directly into the defenseless Ho Fei's body. While flying extremely fast, Qin Yu's eyes suddenly flash with madness. Qin Yu makes a madra with both hands and suddenly shouts loudly, "Open!" His shout resounds through the whole Black Rock Island. Astral domain. 9 stars glitter. The golden light around Qin Yu's body became even more dazzling, and the misty silver star energy actually surged out. At this moment, within Qin Yu's dantian, in the center of countless silver stars, there were 9 Lu Xing orbs that were constantly rotating. These 9 orbs seemed to be burning, emitting 9 terrifying golden star energy. One merged with the main body, while the other 8 transformed into 8 golden phantoms. Di Long couldn't help being startled when he saw the golden light suddenly turn into 9. Qin Yu started to form hand seals again. He suddenly shouted, "Break!" When Qin Yu fought against Xiang Yang, he consumed the silver star energy in his body, seemingly merging 9 stars into 1. However, at the late stage of Lu Xing, Qin Yu just so happens to have 9 Lu Xing orbs. When he uses this move, its power is at its greatest. The 9 golden phantoms start to rotate, just like the 9 orbs in Qin Yu's dantian. Suddenly, the 9 golden phantoms merge into 1 in an instant, becoming an incomparably dazzling Lu Xing. Its light can be seen clearly from thousands of li away. 9 stars merge into 1 Lu Xing strike. Di Long's eyes also radiate an ominous light. His dragon body speeds up again. The demonic elemental energy inside his body completely breaks out. He has also used all of his power. Bang! The intense collision caused the space to tremble, and the air rippled in all directions. The other 3 purple demon aquatic dragons are unexpectedly stupefied for a moment. They only see Di Long transform back into his human form in an instant. The blood in his mouth instantly stains his whole body red. Qin Yu also falls down from the sky powerlessly. His face is deathly pale, and his whole body is also stained with blood. Both sides suffer. Both sides unexpectedly suffer. He's Ho Fei's brother. Looks like this Qin Yu also has some unique skills. Old Freak Three-Eyed exclaims in admiration. Azure Dragon also exclaims in admiration. However, is it really a case of both sides suffering? Di Long's body has been seriously injured so he can no longer fight. But Di Long's yuanying is still at the late Dongshu stage. Even though Qin Yu's body has not been seriously injured, Qin Yu's internal energy has been greatly damaged because the 9 cores, the most important cores in his body, have been burned. His muscles have been torn. Because of the violent collision, his internal organs have been shaken up. Lu Xing's tears wrap around the wounds all over his body. The clear streams are like clear water trickling down, making him feel extremely comfortable. With great difficulty, Qingyu controls his body and stands on the flaming sword in the air. Su immediately transforms into his human form and carries the seriously injured Long in his arms. Long, however, has a grim expression. He takes a look at Qingyu, then at Hou Fei, and gives an order. Kill Hou Fei first, then kill Qingyu. At the moment, Hou Fei is completely powerless to resist, and Qingyu is seriously injured. Yes, big brother. Nai and Jian are still in their purple demon aquatic dragon forms. Heavy voices rise from their abdomens. Afterwards, the two purple demon aquatic dragons charge at Hou Fei extremely fast. Already seriously injured, Qingyu immediately becomes very anxious. He recklessly controls the flaming sword to fly over. However, now Qingyu is seriously injured, so his flying speed is too slow. Uncle Lan, why haven't you come yet? Seeing that he is unable to stop them, Qingyu becomes anxious. When the two purple demon aquatic dragons are about to pierce Hou Fei's body with their black horns, growl. All of a sudden, a sky-shaking growl rises. Hou Fei, who has been in the shape of a giant ape, unexpectedly changes again. Hou Fei's body shrinks extremely fast. In just a moment, he has returned to his original size, which is the same height as an ordinary person. The two purple demon aquatic dragons hit nothing but air and immediately turn around. Hou Fei, don't try to struggle. Whether you transform or not, you won't be able to get rid of the restraints put on you by me and Three-Eyed. There is a hint of disdain in Azure Dragon's eyes. However, his face suddenly changes color greatly, and so does old freak Three-Eyed's face. The two purple demon aquatic dragons turn around and attack Hou Fei again. Pa! With a shake of his hands and legs, Hou Fei unexpectedly gets rid of the restraints put on him by Azure Dragon and old freak Three-Eyed. Hou Fei moves as fast as lightning and suddenly punches Nai with both fists. Nai is immediately sent flying. He then transforms back into his human form and sprays blood all over the sky. When Hou Fei's small fists hit Jian's body, Jian is also sent flying several hundred meters backwards. Although he is more powerful than Nai, he does not transform back into his human form on the spot. Fei! Qingyu opens his eyes wide. How is this possible? Long, Jian, Su and Nai all open their eyes wide. Azure Dragon and old freak Three-Eyed, who are the first to discover that something is wrong, also look at Hou Fei as if they are looking at a monster. Tangshan, Lu Ku and the others look at him blankly. At the moment, even though Hou Fei is as tall as an ordinary person, his appearance is completely different from before. He has silver hair, golden eyes and purple lips. At the moment, Hou Fei gives people the feeling that he is even more terrifying than when he was in his berserk state a moment ago. He's transformed again. Azure Dragon finds this hard to believe. Divine beasts are already very formidable. If they can transform, their offensive power will be raised by one level. For example, old freak Three-Eyed's third eye is enough to raise his offensive power by one level. However, Hou Fei has unexpectedly transformed again after entering his berserk state. You hurt my big brother. Die. Hou Fei looks at Long with cold eyes. With a movement of his body, he has already rushed up to Long. He is so fast that he is even faster than Qinyu's fastest speed. At this moment, Hou Fei was too abnormal, even though his body was small. Although he is small in size, his power is even greater than when he was in his gigantic ape form. Even his speed has been raised by one level. Su, who is standing beside Long, has no time to react and immediately transforms into his true form. At the same time, he also swings his long stick at Hou Fei. Hou Fei waves his hand. The black stick suddenly appears and directly smashes down Su's long stick. Pung! After this blow, the purple demon aquatic dragon that Su has transformed into is sent flying. Su immediately transforms back into his human form and falls down wearily. In just a while, the four brothers, Long, Su and Nai, have completely lost their fighting power. Only Jian still has some fighting power. Hou Fei looks at Long. Long is shocked at once. However, Hou Fei does not show any mercy at all. He directly swings his stick down. Ho Fei has transformed again in his berserk state, because he saw the scene of Qin Yu and Di Long risking their lives just now. Ho Fei prepared to die. Ho Fei's black stick is no longer able to descend, because a strand of demonic elemental energy has completely bound Ho Fei's black stick. Afterwards, a claw pierces through the air. Ho Fei's black stick fuses with his body. With a somersault, he is sent several tens li away. Azure Dragon. As soon as Ho Fei sees Azure Dragon, he slightly frowns. It was Azure Dragon who blocked Ho Fei just now. Even though Ho Fei's power has increased a lot now, he is still no match for Azure Dragon. After all, Azure Dragon is a divine beast of the early Kongming stage. Ho Fei is only a divine beast of the late Yuanying stage. Even though he has transformed twice, there is still a huge gap between them. If Ho Fei is at the late Dongxi stage, he will definitely be able to defeat Azure Dragon. But Ho Fei is only at the late Yuanying stage. Three-eyed. Perhaps you can't imagine what kind of divine beast this Ho Fei is. But facing such a threat, will you let him live? Azure Dragon says smilingly to Three-eyed. Of course not. Old freak Three-eyed uses an illusory technique to transform himself into a green-clad youngster. At this moment, the area between his eyebrows suddenly splits open. A dark green ray of light shoots out from a vertical eye straight at Ho Fei. As soon as he arrives, old freak Three-eyed uses a fierce move. Pung! Ho Fei brandishes his stick and hits it. The dark green ray of light hits the black stick. Ho Fei's body flies backwards, but the black stick is not damaged at all. What kind of holy weapon is that black stick? Old freak Three-eyed is astonished. In the hands of various experts, top-grade holy weapons have different powers. However, old freak Three-eyed's deadly attack is extremely powerful. In his opinion, given Ho Fei's power, even a top-grade holy weapon should be damaged to some extent. But the black stick is not damaged at all. What kind of holy weapon is this? Your Grandpa Ho's fire stick. It's specially made to smash you, you toad. Ho Fei roars wildly. At this moment, Ho Fei has no time to think too much. If others want to kill him, should he just stand there and let them kill him? Ho Fei moves as fast as lightning and arrives at old freak Three-eyed's side in an instant, swinging his stick at him directly. Clang! When the black stick and old freak Three-eyed's sparkling right hand collide, a metallic sound is heard. Three-eyed, you're still holding back? Azure Dragon utters a furious roar. In the blink of an eye, extremely terrifying demonic elemental energy surges out from the surface of his body, covering an area of several tens li in radius. Having no time to dodge, Ho Fei is completely bound by this boundless demonic elemental energy, and his speed slows down greatly at once. Ho Fei struggles, but the binding force is getting stronger and stronger. Ho Fei, even though your true form is extremely rare and precious, it's a pity that you're only at the late stage of Yuanying. If you were at the late Dongxi stage, Three-eyed, and I wouldn't have been a match for you today. With a divine beast like you, perhaps even my dragon clan won't be at ease. How can I possibly tolerate you? At this moment, Di Long, who is seriously injured, raises his eyebrows. The dragon clan? As far as Di Long knows, there is only one Azure Dragon in this blue dragon temple, which is Azure Dragon. Where did the dragon clan come from? Di Long suddenly has a flash of inspiration. He thinks of a possibility, but he hides it at the bottom of his heart. At the moment, killing Ho Fei and Qin Yu is the most important thing. When Azure Dragon is about to launch his killing move, Ho Fei suddenly trembles in pain. Afterwards, his body starts to change slowly. From silver-haired and golden-eyed, he changes back to his previous appearance, an ordinary ape. Ho Fei seems to be seriously ill and has lost all his strength. Haha, looks like your transformation isn't limitless. Azure Dragon laughs out loud. Ho Fei is also furious. According to his hereditary memories, even though his muscles and bones hurt a bit after entering a berserk state, there are no side effects. There is also no time limit. However, the current Ho Fei is simply not capable of carrying out this second transformation. Ho Fei is too anxious and furious, so he succeeds in transforming. But it doesn't last long, and at the moment he simply doesn't even have the strength to raise his hand. This monkey was very arrogant just now, but now he has lost all his strength. and is at the mercy of others. Old Freak Three-Eyed also says smilingly, at the moment he is not nervous at all. A powerless divine beast is no different from a powerless bug. Old Freak Three-Eyed glances at Azure Dragon. Azure Dragon, why haven't you gotten into action to kill him? Three-Eyed, I'll give you a chance. This monkey is an extremely rare divine beast. Do you think I'll let you kill him? Azure Dragon appears very magnanimous. At the moment, he and Old Freak Three-Eyed are not anxious at all. However, Azure Dragon suddenly looks doubtfully at Qinyu. Just now he saw Qinyu risking his life for Hou Fei. Logically speaking, Qinyu should be very anxious now that they are going to kill Hou Fei. But why is Qinyu not anxious at all at the moment, and even has a faint smile on his face? Uncle Lon. Qinyu salutes at once. Seeing Uncle Lon suddenly appear with a smile on his face, and an unhurried expression on his face, Qinyu knows that nothing will happen to Hou Fei. Qinyu naturally relaxes in his heart. Hearing Qinyu's voice, Hou Fei opens his eyes in disbelief. He looks into the distance in pleasant surprise and shouts at once, Master! Azure Dragon and Old Freak Three-Eyed are both astonished. If someone is behind them, and they can't detect it, that person is obviously much more powerful than them. They immediately turn around to look. Uncle Lan's black clothes are fluttering in the wind. There is a faint smile on his face. Fei, you're too impetuous. Uncle Lon waves his sleeve. A ray of light shoots into Hou Fei's body. In just a moment, Hou Fei's injuries are unexpectedly healed, as if they were never injured. Chapter 157. Seeing that thick demonic elemental energy restraining Hou Fei, Uncle Lon frowns. His eyes radiate a hint of cold light. That cold light is like a thunderbolt from the ninth heaven, causing Azure Dragon and Hou Fei's hearts to tremble. Get lost. With a flick of his sleeve, Uncle Lon sends out a stream of soft yet extremely enormous energy. Azure Dragon and Old Freak Three-Eyed are basically unable to resist. These two leading experts of the overseas Xiozhen world are sent flying several hundred li away, without being able to resist at all. They are dumbstruck. The 4D brothers stare blankly at this middle-aged man who has suddenly appeared. Too powerful, simply too powerful. With just a flick of his sleeve, two super experts of the overseas Xiozhen world, who absolutely rank first and second, are sent flying several hundred li away just like that. Tung Shan, Lu Ku and the others are so scared that they do not dare to say anything. Their masters have been sent flying, and they tremble with fear. Master! Hou Fei giggles. Qinyu cannot hide the shock on his face. Even though he knows Uncle Lon is very powerful, this is too powerful, too powerful. What kind of person is the master of the Blue Dragon Temple? He is a divine beast at the early Kongming stage, and is comparable to a Dujia stage Xiuxianist. A Dujia stage Xiuxianist is sent flying several hundred li away by Uncle Lon, without being able to resist at all, with just a flick of his sleeve. What kind of power is this? Perhaps even a celestial immortal is only at this level. What's the matter, Xiaoyu? Uncle Lon looks smilingly at Hou Fei. Hou Fei says laughingly, Big brother must be too surprised by master's power. Humph humph. Even though Azure Dragon and Old Freak are pretty powerful, I can still exchange a couple of blows with them. They can bully me, but how dare they be so arrogant in front of my master? At the moment Hou Fei looks around with his head held high like a complacent rooster. The 4D brothers stand on one side, not daring to utter a word. In fact, at the moment they are having an intense discussion, via holy sense communication. Big brother, didn't you say that the sect Qin you mentioned was fake? But now this Hou Fei is addressing that expert as master. And Qin Yu is also addressing him as Uncle Lon. It seems they are from the same sect. Di Su was about to cry. Di Long also tasted bitter in his mouth. Sigh, don't say any more. How would I know? I didn't think that Qin Yu was telling the truth. If he really had such a powerful backer, then why would he respectfully come to the Nine Spirits Hall with sixth brother and the others? Di Long was no longer angry. With a wave of his sleeve, the first and second strongest experts of the overseas cultivation world were sent flying hundreds of miles away. What kind of strength was this? They didn't even have the slightest bit of strength to fight back, and could only be slaughtered. Originally, They still harbored thoughts of revenge, but now they no longer had any thoughts of revenge. After all, the gap between them was too big, so big that it was impossible to close the gap. If the enemy wanted to kill them, the four of them would be finished with a wave of the hand. Now we can only hope that Super Expert will spare our lives. Now even the arrogant Di Jian has lost all of his arrogance. To be arrogant, one needs strength. A baby is an idiot if he is arrogant in front of a giant. They can only hope that the enemy will spare their lives. But will the enemy spare their lives? Just now they were determined to kill Qin Yu and Hou Fei. At least the four of them were not sure whether the enemy would spare them or not. Moreover, the decision was in the enemy's hands. The moment Azure Dragon and Old Freak Three-Eyed were sent flying, they knew that they had run into an iron plate. Without giving them the slightest chance to resist, the two of them were sent flying hundreds of miles away. Afterwards, that tremendous force disappeared in the blink of an eye. Azure Dragon and Old Freak Three-Eyed immediately steadied themselves, but they did not run away hurriedly. Run away? Do they dare? Just now they were already able to determine what level of power that expert has. With such power, it would be useless no matter where they run. They can only face him. Only if the enemy spares their lives will they be able to live safely in the future. Azure Dragon, you're very knowledgeable. What level of power do you think he has? Old Freak Three-Eyed swallows and says, trembling with fear. At the moment, Old Freak Three-Eyed is no longer cold and arrogant. He has been scared out of his wits because the enemy is too strong. Azure Dragon frowns and thinks for a while, saying, a Desheng stage expert can overturn us. Even a Desheng stage expert can send us flying hundreds of li away in an instant. But he just waved his sleeve so easily, and we didn't even have the slightest power to resist. Moreover, he didn't hurt us at all. Then he must be a natural immortal? Old Freak Three-Eyed says uncertainly. Azure Dragon says with a nod. Yes, a natural immortal. Haven't all natural immortals ascended? How? Even though Old Freak Three-Eyed's power is not bad, his knowledge is far inferior to Azure Dragon's. After all, Azure Dragon belongs to the legendary Dragon clan, and he has been taught by his seniors. Azure Dragon says, then I'll tell you today, natural immortals have ascended, but there are also loose immortals. They have 12 tribulations. After each tribulation, their power will increase a lot. After overcoming the 4th tribulation, their power will be comparable to that of a level 1 natural immortal. A level 1 natural immortal? Old Freak Three-Eyed frowns. Azure Dragon says disdainfully, of course you don't know this. Let me tell you, natural immortals are divided into 9 levels. Loose immortals have to undergo 12 tribulations. A 12th tribulation loose immortal is as powerful as a level 9 loose immortal. A 4th tribulation loose immortal is as powerful as a level 1 natural immortal. Even though there are no natural immortals in this world, there are loose immortals. The legendary 12th tribulation loose immortals are so powerful that they are basically. Azure Dragon thinks for a long time, then says, well, they can crush you like crushing an ant. They can also crush a Desheng stage expert like crushing an ant. Only now does Old Freak Three-Eyed know what it means to say that there is always someone better than you. Even though they can be considered super experts in the overseas Xiuzhen world, they are simply not on the same level as those loose immortals. How many loose immortal tribulations do you think that mysterious expert has? Old Freak Three-Eyed asks doubtfully. Azure Dragon thinks for a while, then recalls the power of the seniors in his clan he saw in the past. Only then does he say slowly, this mysterious expert is too powerful. I can't make an accurate judgment, but I have a feeling that he is at least a 6th tribulation loose immortal. At least a 6th tribulation loose immortal? Doesn't that mean he is at least a level 3 natural immortal? Old Freak Three-Eyed swallows his saliva. Now he finally knows how powerful the mysterious expert is. Azure Dragon says with a nod, let's go. Even if I go back to my clan, the experts in my clan won't allow me to offend such an expert. Moreover, 6th tribulation loose immortal is only the lowest limit of my judgment. How powerful is this expert actually? There's simply no way to judge. Old Freak Three-Eyed also understands that when an expert is much more powerful than you, it is really impossible to judge. Azure Dragon's judgment is based on the aura of the seniors in the Dragon Clan and so on. His power is too weak, and his status is too high. The strongest expert he has seen in his clan is only a 6th tribulation loose demon. But he feels that even that senior is inferior to that mysterious expert in terms of aura. But for Azure Dragon and the others, it makes no difference whether they are 6th tribulation loose immortals or 12th tribulation loose immortals, because they are not able to resist them. Let's go back and wait for someone else to deal with you, Azure Dragon hurriedly urges. Azure Dragon knows that if you give face to that kind of expert, you will let him deal with you. He may not do anything to you because of your status, but if you act arrogantly in front of him, you will have no one to blame for your end. Alright. Old Freak Three-Eyed does not dare to say anything more, and immediately flies back with Azure Dragon. Uncle Lon, I always felt that you were very powerful, but I never thought you would actually. Chinyu says smilingly, but before he can finish speaking, Ho Fei interrupts him. Haha, you didn't expect my master to be this powerful, did you? Needless to say, how can I, Ho Fei's master, be compared with an ordinary person? Ho Fei says with complacent laughter, as if it was him who just sent Azure Dragon, an old freak three-eyed, flying several hundred li away. Hearing Ho Fei's loud laughter, Chinyu can only smile. Uncle Lon says unconcernedly, that little Azure Dragon and the little toad are pretty powerful in the overseas Xiozhen world, but the real Xiozhen world is limitless. It's basically not something you can imagine. Moreover, there's the so-called immortal world above the Xiozhen world, Xiaoyu. You have to set your sights further. Your technique is very special. I think it has great potential. If you keep practicing, I won't be able to judge your future achievements. Uncle Lan's words excite Chinyu. Chinyu certainly knows that these are words of encouragement. But Chinyu is also extremely confident in the stellar transformations technique he has been practicing. Xiuyao, Xioma and Xiuxianists are all Jin Dan's Yuanying, while Chinyu evolves boundless stars. I'll try my best, Chinyu says with a nod. Uncle Lon nods, then says smilingly, that little Azure Dragon and little Toad are coming. Chinyu and Ho Fei immediately turn their heads to take a look. They see Azure Dragon and Ho Fei flying towards them extremely fast. Their faces are full of respect, as if they are children who have seen their teachers. Yen Lang of the Dragon Clan greets Senior. Azure Dragon says with a bow. The eyes of Tung Shan, Lu Ku and the others brighten. They have never known Azure Dragon's real name, and only know that he is called the Master of the Blue Dragon Temple. But now they have heard Azure Dragon's real name. Three-Eyed greets Senior. Old Freak Three-Eyed says respectfully. Old Freak Three-Eyed does not have any powerful background. Since the Three Blue-Eyed Toad is unique, he directly named himself Three-Eyed. This is to show that he is unique. Uncle Lon nods. The Dragon Clan? The Yin family can be considered a relatively powerful clan among the dragons. Uncle Lon does not care about this at all. Hearing Uncle Lan's words, Azure Dragon becomes even more respectful. An expert who is familiar with the internal affairs of the Dragon Clan is very rare. Even ordinary loose immortals do not know about it. Uncle Lon takes another look at Old Freak Three-Eyed and says smilingly, perhaps the Three Blue-Eyed Toad is also unique in the Xiozhen world. Hearing Uncle Lan's words, Old Freak Three-Eyed is overjoyed at once. A big smile blooms on his face. Uncle Lon suddenly frowns, saying, this time my disciple and nephew were traveling in the overseas Xiozhen world north of the chaotic Astral Ocean. Why did you insist on killing my disciple and injuring Xiaoyu so badly? Give me a good explanation. Even though Uncle Lan's words are very flat and not even angry at all, Azure Dragon and Old Freak Three-Eyed are both very frightened. They know very well that their little lives will be determined by their answers at this moment. Senior, this Chinyu. It was those several bugs of the Nine Spirits Hall who went too far. They even wanted to use waking stings to devour Chinyu. Waking stings to devour? Uncle Lon raises his eyebrows, showing his killing intent. Di Long and the others, who have been paying attention to this all the time in the distance, immediately become terrified. Despite his serious injury, Di Long hurriedly rushes over and says with a bow, Senior, I am Di Long of the Nine Spirits Hall. The truth was not told by the master of the Blue Dragon Temple. Shut up. Uncle Lon says softly. D-Long does not dare to say anything at once. Uncle Lon looks at Azure Dragon and says, "You keep talking. Later on, don't interrupt when you're talking. Talk one by one. There'll always be a chance for you to talk. Don't worry." Uncle Lon casts a glance at D-Long and the others. The 4D brothers become even more terrified, but they do not dare to interrupt, and can only listen. Azure Dragon says with a nod. Eighth brother of the Nine Spirits Hall was killed, so the Nine Spirits Hall sent 3 brothers to capture Qingyu and interrogate him. At this moment Uncle Lon gives Qingyu a look and gives a smile. Qingyu can only pretend to look straight ahead. Uncle Lon has already known that he killed 8th Majesty, but Uncle Lon is not such a pedantic person. Brother Qingyu is very good. He cooperated very well with the 3 Majesties and went to the Nine Spirits Hall with them. He did not run away at all. However, when he arrived at the Nine Spirits Hall, he was met with waking stings to devour him so 3-eyed, and I could not stand it anymore. So we secretly sent people to rescue Qingyu. When Azure Dragon says this, Old Freak 3-eyed nods in agreement. Xiaoyu, is that true? Uncle Lon looks at Qingyu. Qingyu nods at once and says smilingly, Uncle Lon, at that time I was trapped in the prison and could not get out. It was indeed Senior Master of the Blue Dragon Temple and Senior 3-eyed who rescued me. Brother Qingyu, don't call us seniors. Your uncle is such an expert, so how can we be qualified to be your seniors? You can just call us by our names. Old Freak 3-eyed also says to Qingyu cordially. Uncle Lon says with a nod. All right, go on. Azure Dragon says with a nod. When Brother Qingyu found out that he was almost devoured, he was furious, so he directly took away the treasure-storing palace of the Nine Spirits Hall. He wanted to vent his anger. The Nine Spirits Hall treated people unkindly, so it was normal for Brother Qingyu to take revenge like this. However, the brothers of the Nine Spirits Hall set out, and were determined to kill Qingyu. That's why the scene on the Black Rock Island happened. Old Freak 3-eyed says at once. Senior, on this Black Rock Island, Brother Qingyu was trapped by the Great Six Harmonies Heavenly Gates formation, set up by the brothers of the Nine Spirits Hall. It was me who used my third eye to break that formation, and let Qingyu out. Azure Dragon and Old Freak 3-eyed keep on shouting and singing, putting all the benefits on themselves. They push all the blame on the Nine Spirits Hall, which has committed the most heinous crimes. The 4D brothers, however, cannot interrupt, so they can only stand on one side and feel anxious. Qingyu stands quietly beside Uncle Lon without saying anything. Ho Fei, however, is very complacent. After listening for so long, Uncle Lon is very calm, and does not get angry at the people of the Nine Spirits Hall. However, the 4D brothers of the Nine Spirits Hall are very nervous. Chapter 158. Azure Dragon and Old Freak 3-eyed try their best to tell him what they have done because they know that they simply cannot evade the fact that they want to kill Ho Fei. Now they are saying so much only because they hope that Uncle Lon will spare their lives in the end. You saved Xiaoyu from prison, and also broke the Great Six Harmonies Heavenly Gates formation to save him. Uncle Lon nods. Suddenly Uncle Lon says with a frown. But just now I saw with my own eyes that you wanted to kill my disciple. Why don't you explain to me what's going on? Azure Dragons and Old Freak 3-eyed's hearts are hanging by a thread. They taste bitterness in their mouths. Oh, 3-eyed, you go first. Uncle Lon looks at Old Freak 3-eyed and asks. At the moment, Old Freak 3-eyed doesn't look like an old freak at all. He looks like a well-behaved youngster in green. A mortal would think that he is a well-behaved youngster from some family. Senior, let's talk about this, let's talk about this. Old Freak 3-eyed's mind is racing like lightning. At the moment he is as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. But he has to answer why he wants to kill this guy's disciple. Based on this guy has a reason to kill him. An idea suddenly flashes through Old Freak 3-eyed's mind. Old Freak 3-eyed says, Senior, the reason why we attacked was because of the majesties of the Nine Spirits Hall. He gives the 4D brothers a look with a smile. The 4D brothers, however, stare at him angrily. The Nine Spirits Hall, the Blue River Province, and the Blue Dragon Temple are the 3 superpowers in the underwater Shiojin world. They have a bit of friendship with each other. When Hou Fei killed Di Luan and Di Feng, the two majesties of the Nine Spirits Hall, Di Long and the others were immediately infuriated and wanted to kill Hou Fei. But brother Hou Fei is too powerful for them to do anything to him. As allies, we naturally had to get into action and help him. Old Freak Three-Eyed's excuse is already a light one. Azure Dragon hurriedly says, Senior, that's true. The Nine Spirits Hall and us have been friends for better or worse for worse. We had to get into action and help. In fact, Azure Dragon and Old Freak Three-Eyed felt that this divine beast Hou Fei was too formidable and a great threat to them. That was why he decided to kill Hou Fei. But of course, he didn't want to reveal the truth. If he did, he would most likely lose his life. Uncle Lan's face was still cold. In an instant, Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon's hearts become ice cold, as if they have fallen into a bottomless abyss. Uncle Lan said indifferently, If I hadn't rushed over today, my disciple might have been killed by you. Even though you're helping others, there's conclusive evidence that you're trying to kill my disciple. There's no denying it. Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon exchange a look, then immediately bow and say in unison. Junior was muddle-headed. I hope Senior can show mercy. Uncle Lan was deep in thought, not saying a word. Both Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon feel uneasy. They know that this mysterious expert is pondering at the moment. Uncle Lan does not ponder for a long time. But for Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon, every second feels like a year. You wanted to kill my disciple, so you should be killed without mercy. But since you helped Xiao Yu, I'll spare your lives for the time being. If you commit this kind of thing again in the future, don't blame me for being ruthless. Uncle Lan said indifferently. Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon felt as if the whole world had come back to life, as if they had just returned from hell. Thank you for showing mercy, Senior. Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon hurriedly bow and say, Remember my master's words. If you commit this kind of thing again in the future, humph. Hou Fei said with a cold humph. As soon as Azure Dragon heard this, he cursed inwardly. If I kill you again, I'll be an idiot. If I know you have an expert of at least the 6th tribulation level behind you, do you think I want to die? Azure Dragon and Old Freak Three-Eyed are both smart, so they both agree. Four brats of the Nine Spirits Hall. Don't you have something to say? Don't hesitate to say it. Uncle Lan looked at the 4D brothers. Di Long took a deep breath. At the moment he was under great pressure, because what he said would affect the lives of his 4 surviving brothers. Big brother, don't hesitate to say it. Even if we die, we'll die together. Di Jian looked at Di Long and said. Di Nai and Di Su also nodded at Di Long. When there is a glimmer of hope, Zooists will compromise. Take Azure Dragon and Old Freak Three-Eyed for example. But if there is no hope of survival, they will die with a bit of backbone. The 4D brothers simply don't think they have any hope of survival. In their opinion, if other people had done this to them, they would have killed them long ago. Senior, it's very simple. My 8th brother died, so I wanted to find out who the murderer was. Qin Yu knew about it, so I captured him, intending to let the Jingzhi devour him and learn his memories. Then I would find out who the murderer was. Afterwards Qin Yu escaped and seized the treasure-storing palace of my Nine Spirits Hall. We then chased him all the way to this place. The 2 masters of the Blue Dragon Temple have already told me what happened afterwards. I won't say anything more. Di Long said frankly in just a few sentences. Di Jian also said, Senior, we have to avenge our brothers. If you want to kill us, just kill us. Di Nai and Di Su also looked at Uncle Lan. Haha. Uncle Lan suddenly burst out laughing. Youngsters, originally I didn't feel like bickering with you, and was going to let you live. But since you brothers insist on dying, I'll do as you wish and send you on your way. After saying so, Uncle Lan was about to wave his sleeve. Stop. Di Long immediately shouts loudly. Uncle Lan immediately stops and looks at Di Long with a faint smile. Di Long immediately kneels down and says respectfully, Senior, the 4 of us have been reckless. Our dream is to pass the 9 from 9th heaven tribulation one day, so that we can ascend. Senior, you're so magnanimous to give us this opportunity. If you really want to kill us, just kill us. Just now we misspoke. It has nothing to do with us brothers. A smile appears on Uncle Lan's face. Dilong, Uncle Lan says. Dilong immediately obeys respectfully. Dilong, it's true that your brothers in the Nine Spirits Hall have a good relationship with each other. But you treat other people's lives like dogs and kill them whenever you want. Take Xiaoyu for example. You simply didn't find out what kind of enmity there was between you and Xiaoyu, so you directly prepared to kill him. That's a bit too vicious. Uncle Lan reprimands them. Dilong and the other three brothers bow and take orders. They simply do not dare to disobey. Uncle Lan says again. It's said that the path of Xiuzhen is to go against heaven, and most people are selfish. But when you learned that your eighth brother was dead, you prepared to kill all the possible murderers. You'd rather kill 1,000 by mistake than let one go. That's already beyond the scope of selfish. Uncle Lan says smilingly. Today I can tell you that your eighth brother was killed by Xiaoyu. What are you going to do now? Hearing Uncle Lan's words, the faces of the four brothers change color. Qingyu says with a nod. Indeed, that day Di Tong killed Shahon and wanted to seize the eighth jade sword. Then I got into action and killed Di Tong directly. Then I became the Oriole and got the eighth jade sword. Qingyu turns his hand, and a jade sword appears in Qinyu's hand. Azure Dragon's and Old Freak Three-Eyed's eyes brighten. The 4D brothers give each other a look. Dilong says respectfully at once. Brother Qinyu is really awesome. We brothers aren't stubborn people either. In this fight for treasures, it's either you die or I die. My eighth brother was not as good as you, so he died. The dead are already dead, but the living have to keep on living. At the moment Dilong has no desire to take revenge. Revenge? If he wants to take revenge, perhaps he will lose his life before he can even hurt the enemy's hair. After a discussion, in the end Uncle Lan does not kill anyone. Senior, Junior has a suggestion. Azure Dragon suddenly says. Old Freak Three-Eyed immediately says via Holy Sense communication. Azure Dragon, are you stupid? This senior didn't kill us, so why don't we leave now? If he changes his mind, we'll be in trouble. Old Freak Three-Eyed is selfish, so naturally he cares about his own life the most. Speak. Uncle Lan says while looking at Azure Dragon. Azure Dragon says smilingly. Now 5 of the 9 brothers of the Nine Spirits Hall are dead and only 4 are left. Their power is simply not enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Blue Dragon Temple and the Blue River Province. Now they don't have enough power to occupy that 90 million li of water. Lord of the Blue Dragon Temple, what do you mean? Dilong's face changes color. In the past, when the 9 of them were still alive, they could set up formations together to deal with Azure Dragon or Old Freak Three-Eyed. Now however 5 of his brothers had died. Although the remaining brothers were the strongest, they were still the strongest. Even though the remaining 4 of them are the strongest, they simply cannot set up formidable formations. They are indeed not qualified to be compared with the Blue Dragon Temple of the Blue River Province. What do I mean? Azure Dragon gives a smile. Your Highness Dilong, could it be you still think you're strong enough to occupy that 90 million li of water? I propose that the 90 million li of water under the Nine Spirits Hall's control, including half of the water close to the Qianlong continent, be given to the Red Blood Cave to manage. Given the power of Brother Qin Yu and Brother Ho Fei, you're definitely qualified to take on this responsibility. Good. Old Freak Three-Eyed agrees at once, but in his mind, he curses Azure Dragon for flattering him. Ho Fei's eyes brighten as he says, Good. The 8 caves under the Nine Spirits Hall's control. I don't need to measure them accurately. We won't ask for too many. The 2 caves close to our Red Blood Cave will be under our control. In total we'll have 3 caves. Ho Fei is the most excited when it comes to this matter. Your Highness Dilong, do you have any objections? Azure Dragon looks at Dilong. Ho Fei also looks at Dilong with a frown. Dilong has no choice but to say, We all know Brother Ho Fei's power. Together with Brother Qinyu, the 2 of them are enough to manage the 3 caves' water areas. Therefore, the Red Blood Cave will be in charge of those 30 million li of water. Azure Dragon suddenly says again, Brother Qinyu, Brother Ho Fei, the territory to the west of the Red Blood Cave is my Blue Dragon Temple's territory. I'll also give 2 caves under my control to the Red Blood Cave directly. What do you think? Haha, leader of the Blue Dragon Temple, you're really generous. D-Long gives us 2 caves, and you also give us 2 caves water areas. Ho Fei purposely emphasized the word heroic spirit. Azure Dragon gives several hollow laughs. The area of water under the control of the Blue Dragon Temple and the Blue River Province is very large in the first place, far larger than that of the 9 Spirits Hall. To them, giving Qinyu the water areas controlled by the 2 Immortals' caves could not be considered a big loss. Ho Fei immediately looks at Old Freak Three-Eyed with his glittering eyes. Old Freak Three-Eyed immediately squeezes out a smile and says, "The 2 caves under my control in the Blue River Province to the east of the Red Blood Cave will also belong to you." In this way, Qinyu and the others obtain 6 Immortals' caves all at once. In addition to themselves, they now have 7 Immortals' caves bodies of water. Now they will have more than 5 caves under the control of the 9 Spirits Hall. Ho Fei says frowningly, "Well, in any case, we're now the 3rd largest power at the bottom of the sea." Hearing this, the 4D brothers' expressions become even more bitter. Ho Fei continues, "But will still be called the Red Blood Cave. The Red Blood Cave is the name given by Shahon. We'll have to change it. We'll have to change it completely." Qinyu nods. It is indeed necessary to change the name. Others have the 9 Spirits Hall, the Blue Dragon Temple, and the Blue River Province. Am I supposed to use the name Red Blood Cave? Azure Dragon immediately laughs out loud and suggests, "Haha, in my opinion, not only should we change the name, we should also renovate the buildings inside the original caves. The scale should be increased by at least 10 times. With 7 caves, we'll at least have a suitable place. Uncle Lon, help me come up with a name." Qinyu thinks for a long time, but still cannot decide on a good name. Hearing this, Uncle Lon gives him a look and says, "Xiaoyu, you're destined to be a star, so let's call it the Stellar Tower. As for the buildings, they don't have to be too luxurious. They just have to occupy a large area and be small and exquisite." "Alright, let's call it the Stellar Tower." Qinyu makes up his mind. In fact, Qinyu does not want to make the palace too luxurious or big. Qinyu does not like to be overly extravagant. Stellar Tower, an ordinary name. Ho Fei blinks his mouth twice. If it's called Marquis Mansion, then it'll be more imposing. This Marquis Mansion. Kaka, not bad, not bad. Pa. Uncle Lon knocks Ho Fei on the head. Ho Fei immediately stops talking. Blue Dragon Temple Master, please help me inform them that 3 years from now, the Stellar Tower will officially open. Qinyu greets Azure Dragon. The Blue Dragon Temple Master nods and smiles. "Brother Qinyu, don't worry. I'll definitely help you inform them. Let's go. This place is rather far from the Red Blood Cave. I'll take you back." Uncle Lon grabs Qinyu's and Ho Fei's arms. Afterwards, the 3 of them disappear into thin air. Teleportation. Everybody at the scene feels their hearts tremble. According to legend, only immortals can perform teleportation. Moreover, he can teleport while carrying 2 people. What kind of power does this person have? Azure Dragon. What kind of power does he have to teleport while carrying 2 people? Old Freak Three-Eyed looks at Azure Dragon. Azure Dragon secretly lets out a sigh of relief. After calming himself down, he says, "I don't know. As far as I know, only 4th Tribulation loose immortals can teleport. This senior can teleport while carrying 2 people. This kind of power. I'll have to ask the seniors in my clan to be sure. Right. I'll also have to inform the Penglai Immortal region and the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon about the Stellar Tower." Old Freak Three-Eyed nods his head. Qinyu and Ho Fei are already pretty powerful. Plus that mysterious Uncle Lon. From now on, the 5 superpowers of the overseas Xiozhen world will become the 6 superpowers of the overseas Xiozhen world. Chapter 159. Most people on the Qianlong continent are mortals. To the south of the Qianlong continent is a boundless ocean with many immortal islands. Billions of li to the south of the Qianlong continent, there is a region formed by several hundred islands close to each other, the Penglai Immortal region. This is the core region of overseas Xiuxianists. There are schools in great numbers in the Penglai Immortal region. The several hundred islands are all extremely vast. Most of them have millions of mortals, and over 1,000 Xiaxianists on each island. The Penglai Immortal region also has hundreds of thousands of Xiaxianists. However, although there are many schools in the Penglai Immortal region, the Qingshu Temple is the leader. The Qingshu Temple does not have many disciples, and can only be regarded as average among the schools in the Penglai Immortal region. However, it has a Grand Elder, Reverend Yin Su, who has reached the late Kongming stage, and is only a step away from the Dujia stage. This man is none other than the pillar of the Penglai Immortal region. On the Qingshu Island of the Penglai Immortal region, this Qingshu Island has been set up with several tens energy-gathering formations. The holy energy on the island is several tens times denser than in the ordinary ocean. The closer one is to the center of the island, the denser the holy energy is. It is so dense that one can even see waves of fog. Various Xiaxianists are either riding swords, flying, riding clouds, or using light. In a simple and unadorned pavilion, there is a silver-haired old man with a ruddy face who looks like a baby. Beside him is the abbot of the Qingshu Temple, known as Reverend Yin Lan. That silver-haired old man is none other than Reverend Yin Su, the Grand Elder of the Qingshu Temple. Senior Martial Brother, the Xiang 600 Du tea is unique, and they can only send it to you frequently. I'm only able to taste this 100 Du tea because of you. Reverend Yin Lan took a sip of the tea with great enjoyment. Reverend Yin Su, however, gives an indifferent smile. The Xiang school is very ambitious and wants to be number one in everything. Our Qingshu Temple isn't ambitious, but we have power, so it's not surprising that they want to curry favor with us. Reverend Yin Su is the most powerful person in the Penglai Immortal region. He is the number one figure in the Penglai Immortal region. Senior Brother, the Xiang school has several tens of thousands of disciples in the Penglai Immortal region, but we only have several thousand. In fact, if it weren't for the teachings of our founding master, our Qingshu Temple would have had far more disciples than them. Even though we don't have many disciples, our Qingshu Temple's experts are stronger than theirs both here and on the Tonglong continent. Reverend Yin Lan says to hear with some arrogance. Junior Brother, the Qingshu Temple's practice technique attaches great importance to the state of mind. It requires the state of mind to be tranquil and indifferent to achieve great things. If we recruit more disciples and form more factions, our Qingshu Temple will be in a foul atmosphere, and our disciples won't have great achievements. Reverend Yin Su says smilingly. Reverend Yin Lan also nods. If I hadn't despised the fact that the Tonglong continent was a place where cultivators competed with each other for treasures of heaven and earth, and where each sect had more experts than the other, it would have been much more chaotic than here. Why would I stay here instead of going to the Tonglong continent? Saying this, Reverend Yin Su lets out a sigh. Suddenly, Reverend Yin Su takes out a transmitter with a flip of his hand. After scanning it with his holy sense, he says smilingly, Junior Brother, I didn't expect that Azure Dragon of the Blue Dragon Temple to send me a message. Azure Dragon? That Azure Dragon who didn't return to the Dragon Clan either? Reverend Yin Lan says smilingly. Reverend Yin Su nods. Why go back to the Dragon Clan? In the Dragon Clan, he's only a junior. It's better for him to be free and unfettered here. Oh, the Stellar Tower. Reverend Yin Su suddenly stops talking and concentrates on talking with Azure Dragon through the transmitter. After a while, Reverend Yin Su puts the transmitter away with a somewhat solemn expression. His eyebrows are furrowed into the shape of a chuan. Obviously he is pondering. Senior Brother, what actually made you ponder so deeply? Could it be the 8th Jade Sword has appeared? Or perhaps the 9th Jade Sword has appeared? Reverend Yin Lan says smilingly. Only the 9 Swords Immortal Mansion is worthy of the attention of the 5 superpowers of the overseas Xiozhen world. Reverend Yin Su says with a nod. Yes, the 8th Jade Sword has appeared. Oh, where is it? Reverend Yin Lan's eyes brighten. Senior Brother, the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon has 2 Jade Swords, and the Blue Dragon Temple has 2 while our Penglai Immortal region has only 1. Between the 8th and 9th Jade Swords, one of them should belong to us, right? Reverend Yin Su says with a shake of his head. Don't think about it. This 8th Jade Sword already has an owner, and its owner has a very powerful background. Now the 5 superpowers of the overseas Xiozhen world should be changed to the 6 superpowers. 6 superpowers? Among underwater zooists, apart from the Blue Dragon Temple, the Blue River Province and the 9 Spirits Hall, could there be another one? Reverend Yen Lan immediately determines that this 6th superpower must have appeared among underwater zooists. This is because Xiuxianists and Xiamoists are completely gathered together. The Penglai Immortal Region and the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon will definitely not have another one. Reverend Yen Su says with a nod. Yes, it's called the Stellar Tower. Stellar Tower? Who's the Tower Master? Reverend Yen Lan asks at once. Reverend Yen Su is indifferent to fame and fortune, but as the master of the Qingxu Temple, he still has many things he must know. He's called Qinyu, but this Qinyu is a big shot. His brother is a divine beast, an extremely formidable one at that. His uncle, that is that divine beast's master, is a loose immortal. Reverend Yen Su says in a somewhat heavy tone. Reverend Yen Lan's heart is shaken. Loose immortal? Reverend Yen Lan ponders extremely fast for a while. Why would a loose immortal come to the north of the chaotic astral ocean? Is this place worth coming to? Senior brother, did that azure dragon say how powerful that loose immortal is? Reverend Yen Lan asks at once. Even though the Qingxu Temple does not have many experts in the Penglai Immortal region, it has as many experts as there are clouds on the Tunglong continent. If it were a first tribulation to third tribulation loose immortal, given the reputation of his school, he would be able to deal with it. He's at least a 6th tribulation loose immortal. The main thing is that Azure Dragon can't make an accurate judgment. And this is the most conservative judgment. When Reverend Yen Su says 6th tribulation loose immortal, he feels a bit depressed. 6th tribulation loose immortal. Reverend Yen Lan's face changes color greatly. He knows very well what a 6th tribulation loose immortal means. Even on the Tunglong continent, such a figure can summon the wind and summon the rain. Even though the Qingxu Temple has a foundation of several million years, it still does not want to offend such an expert. Moreover, a 6th tribulation loose immortal is only a guess. The most conservative estimate is that the real power of a 6th tribulation loose immortal cannot be determined. This matter must be reported to the schools on the Tunglong continent. Senior brother, generally, there are not many loose immortals who have surpassed the 4th tribulation on the Tunglong continent. Such an expert must be treated with caution and must never be offended. Reverend Yen Lan says hurriedly. Reverend Yen Su says with a smile. Don't worry, junior brother. How can I not know the significance of such an expert? The Stellar Tower will be officially opened in 3 years. I must deliver this news to the other schools in the Penglai Immortal region. Our Penglai Immortal region must bring great gifts to the Stellar Tower. Yes, great gifts. Reverend Yen Lan says with a nod, then enjoins. Senior brother, don't tell the other schools for the time being that the Stellar Tower is backed by at least a 6th tribulation loose immortal. Don't tell the other schools for the time being. Just tell them that it's a loose immortal. Let's not talk about anything else. Even though the Qingxu Temple, a school that attaches great importance to indifference and tranquility, is facing a super expert who is at least a 6th tribulation loose immortal. Reverend Yen Su nods his head. In the Penglai Immortal region, the Qingxu Temple is the leader. The Ziying School and the Lanyang School are the assistants. Behind them are the 12 schools and a great number of small schools and so on. The Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon is located in the deep ocean 100 million li away from the Qianlong continent. It is made up of over 100 islands. However, the real leader of this Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon is an expert who does not belong to any school or school. He is called the Purple-Haired Dungeon King Ida. He is extremely powerful and has reached the late Kongming stage. The Dungeon King Island is where Ida is located. There are very few people on this island, only several hundred, compared to the several million mortals and several thousand Xiamoists on the other islands. The Dungeon King Island is much smaller. On the other hand, the Dungeon King Island is obviously much smaller. There is a solitary peak in the center of the Dungeon King Island. One side of this peak is completely vertical, looking like the tip of a sword. A handsome man is sitting quietly with legs crossed and eyes closed on the top of the peak. There are 2 attendants waiting respectfully on one side of the peak in the distance. This man has long purple hair. His long hair has already floated down to the ground, but strangely, it is not stained with even a speck of dust. This man is none other than the purple-haired Dungeon King. Ida suddenly opens his eyes. An almost invisible purple light flashes through his eyes. A transmitter then appears in his hand. Azure Dragon? Ida immediately starts to communicate with Azure Dragon in detail. After a while, Ida puts the transmitter away and says expressionlessly to the people behind him, "Pass on my order. Tell the master of the Yenma School and the master of the Inua Palace to come to my place. I have something important to discuss with them." Yes. The 2 attendants behind him bow and say. Afterwards, they immediately disappear from the peak. A loose immortal who has at least reached the 6th tribulation. Ida bites his lips. Drops of blood ooze out from them. He sticks out his tongue and licks them clean. Afterwards, he closes his eyes and sits down with legs crossed again, as if nothing has happened. Qin Yu and Hou Fei take a look ahead. The red blood cave is right in front of them. Qin Yu and Hou Fei both feel their hearts palpitate. Good heavens! The distance between the Black Rock Island and the Red Blood Cave is 80 million li. They have traveled such a long distance, but they have returned in the blink of an eye. Teleportation. It's the legendary teleportation that only immortals can use. Qin Yu still remembers what is recorded in those Xiuzhen books. But Uncle Lan is really too freakish. He has directly used teleportation to come here with the 2 of them. At least for now. Qin Yu is simply unable to imagine this kind of power. What are you 2 brats doing? Why don't you go back? Uncle Lan says smilingly. Hou Fei immediately wakes up from his shock. He says at once, "Master, I've never experienced teleportation before. It's so cool. Do you know how long it took me to follow Big Brother from here to the Black Rock Island? A year. Now I've returned in the blink of an eye. Master, what other magical powers do you have that you haven't shown me? Let me feel them." Hou Fei's eyes brighten. "Your master has a lot of magical powers. I'm just afraid you don't have the guts to try them." Uncle Lan strokes his beard and says smilingly. Hou Fei says indifferently, "I don't have the guts. Master, don't you know how powerful your disciple is? There are still things I don't dare to do. Tell me, what magical powers do you have? Let me feel them." "Okay, then I'll let you feel my Imperial Wind technique." Uncle Lan says smilingly to Hou Fei. Qin Yu's eyes also brighten. He immediately watches carefully from the side. Ever since he met Uncle Lan, Qin Yu hasn't seen Uncle Lan fight more than a few times. Usually, you can't even see such a great expert fight even if you want to. Come on. Let me feel what the Imperial Wind technique is." Hou Fei is so excited that his eyes keep flashing with red light. "I'm ready," Uncle Lan reminds. At the same time, Uncle Lan sets up a restrictive spell with a range of several hundred meters. He doesn't want others to see some of his techniques. Hou Fei clenches his fists. His entire body is faintly filled with power. At this moment he is completely ready. Uncle Lan's hands move. So fast. Qin Yu's heart is greatly shaken. Just now, in that instant, he felt as though Uncle Lan had formed several hundred, or even several thousand hand seals. But because the speed is too fast, Qin Yu is simply unable to determine how many hand seals Uncle Lan has formed. Uncle Lan smiles, then calmly points at Hou Fei. Spin. A cyan whirlwind instantly wraps around Hou Fei. The cyan whirlwind is about 5 or 6 meters tall, and not very large in diameter. It just so happens to wrap around Hou Fei. The range of the whirlwind isn't very large. Even Qin Yu, who is nearby, isn't affected in the slightest. Spin. Spin at an extremely high speed. The whirlwind turns cyan, and its spinning speed reaches an astonishing level. At the same time, Hou Fei also began to spin at an extremely high speed. At the same time, Hou Fei also began to let out strange gurgling sounds. Crackle. Outside the whirlwind, because the whirlwind is spinning at an extremely high speed, the surrounding space is actually unable to withstand the pressure, and then collapses. In an instant, Qin Yu clearly sees the space collapse. The area of the collapse is slightly larger than the area of the whirlwind. Not good. Qin Yu's face changes. Qin Yu has heard of spatial rifts before. Once one falls into a spatial rift, most likely even loose immortals won't be able to survive. Qin Yu can't help but worry about Hou Fei. But at this moment, Uncle Lon still has a calm smile on his face. He isn't worried in the slightest. This calmed Qin Yu slightly. Hou Fei is currently being swept up by the whirlwind, constantly spinning at an extremely high speed. At such a speed, an ordinary person's body would have been destroyed by the whirlwind. The Cyan whirlwind is within the area of the spatial collapse, but it isn't affected by the powerful devouring force of the spatial collapse at all. Qin Yu can clearly see that within the area of the spatial collapse, there are chaotic streams of energy flowing about. Every stream of energy is so powerful that it makes Qin Yu's heart tremble. But the moment these streams of energy touch the whirlwind, they disappear. They aren't able to harm Hou Fei in the slightest. Freeze! Uncle Lon pointed again, and the speed of the Cyan whirlwind gradually slowed down, and the cracks in the space automatically healed. The water at the bottom of the sea once again covers that area, as though the spatial collapse had never occurred. The Cyan whirlwind dissipates as well. Hou Fei collapses as though he's exhausted. His eyes are blurry as he mumbles, so dizzy. Chapter 160. At this moment, Qin Yu secretly let out a sigh of relief, but seeing Hou Fei's appearance, he couldn't help but laugh. Fei, aren't you very courageous? Just now, Master had only displayed a single divine ability. Do you want to try the other divine abilities? That was just an appetizer. What follows will definitely be even more powerful. Uncle Lon said in all seriousness, but his eyes were full of laughter. Hou Fei, who was originally dizzy and weak in the knees, immediately stood up. He shook his head violently and looked at Uncle Lon, saying, Master, Disciple already knows of Master's great magical ability. Disciple admires you greatly. Master's magical ability is really too amazing. Please spare Disciple. Hou Fei looked at Uncle Lon pitifully with his fiery eyes. All right, Uncle Lon said with a smile. Let's forget about this matter for the time being. You'd better cultivate properly. You'll naturally be able to display this ability in the future. At this moment, Qin Yu was still recalling the scene from just now, when Uncle Lon used the wind-controlling technique. The terrifying power of the whirlwind didn't affect him, who was more than 10 meters away. This kind of energy control technique was really amazing. Moreover, that whirlwind was so powerful that it could tear space apart. With such power, Hou Fei, who was inside it, wasn't injured at all. Also, after the space collapsed, that whirlwind enveloped Hou Fei, but he was completely fine after entering the space crack. In the end, he came out safely. This kind of magical ability was far more powerful than the so-called tearing space. Little you, why are you in a daze? You two go back to the cave first. Uncle Lon smiled and released the surrounding restrictive spells. Qin Yu immediately said, Uncle Lon, come with me to the Red Blood Cave to rest. I still have many things I want to ask you. Hou Fei also hurriedly said, That's right. Master, you haven't been to the Red Blood Cave yet. Disciple will lead the way for you. Uncle Lon couldn't dissuade Qin Yu and Hou Fei, so he could only say, All right, let's go and rest first. After that, the three of them directly returned to the Red Blood Cave. Once Qin Yu and Hou Fei returned to the Red Blood Cave, the entire Red Blood Cave was in an uproar. When Qin Yu was taken away by the three majesties of the Nine Spirits Hall, the protectors were all worried that Qin Yu would be killed. Kuro was even more excited to see Qin Yu and Hou Fei return. For the past year, Kuro had been worried about Qin Yu. He couldn't wait to go to the Nine Spirits Hall. However, because of Qin Yu's strict orders, he could only stay in the Red Blood Cave. Now that they had returned, the Red Blood Cave held a big banquet to celebrate. The three brothers, Qin Yu, Hou Fei and Kuro, also drank for a day and a night. Uncle Lon, on the other hand, stayed in his residence and didn't come out to join the crowd. A few days later, the Red Blood Cave returned to its usual tranquility. In the hall of an attic in the northern district of the Red Blood Cave, Qin Yu and Uncle Lon were drinking tea and chatting. Uncle Lon, Last time the Azure Dragon said something about the Dragon Clan. I also heard about the chaotic astral ocean. Can you explain it to me? I'm really confused. Qin Yu put down his teacup and looked at Uncle Lon, waiting for Uncle Lon to answer him. As soon as Uncle Lon heard Qin Yu's question, he smiled. I knew you'd definitely ask about this. All right, I'll explain it to you in detail. Uncle Lon also put down his teacup. After sorting out his thoughts a bit, he slowly said, Xiao Yu, do you know how big this ocean is? Qin Yu frowned, then said, the southern waters of the Qianlong continent are almost boundless. Hundreds of millions of li away, there's the Penglai Immortal region, and the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon. What about further south? Uncle Lon continued to ask. Qin Yu was startled, then shook his head to show that he didn't know. In fact, Qin Yu only heard about the Penglai Immortal region and the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon from other people. He has never been there. As for how far they are, nobody knows. The so-called hundreds of millions of li away is just an imaginary number. But Qin Yu knows that they must be 100 million li away. Uncle Lon said with a nod. The Qianlong continent, as well as hundreds of millions of li to the south of the Qianlong continent. It's a world where mortals and Zionist coexist. However, if you go further south, towards the ocean, you'll encounter the chaotic astral ocean. Chaotic astral ocean? Qin Yu's eyes brightened. Uncle Lon said with a nod. Yes, the chaotic astral ocean. The chaotic astral ocean is different from ordinary oceans. There are only invisible restrictive spells between the chaotic astral ocean and ordinary oceans. These restrictive spells are not restrictive spells in a narrow sense. They are a kind of rule, the rule of heaven and earth. The rule of heaven and earth? Qin Yu was startled. Uncle Lon said with a nod. Yes, if a Zionist flies south of the Qianlong continent and crosses hundreds of millions of li of the ocean to reach the edge of the chaotic astral ocean, he'll find that the waves there are monstrous and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is extremely violent. The chaotic astral ocean is extremely vast. As far as I know, it'll take you 100 years to travel through the chaotic astral ocean at your speed. Uncle Lon said with a smile. Qin Yu, however, was aghast. With his own speed, Qin Yu could travel 1 million li in a day and 300 million li in a year. Uncle Lon said that it would take him 100 years. Doesn't that mean that the chaotic astral ocean is tens of billions of li across? Such a large planet is indeed very rare. Uncle Lon said with a sigh. Qin Yu was startled. Uncle Lon, what did you just say? Qin Yu hurriedly asked. Ordinary Zionists may not know the concept of a planet, but Qin Yu learned from Lei Mountain House that there are countless planets in the universe. The planet he is on is one of the rarely seen, extremely large planets. Uncle Lon said with a smile. Let's continue. Although you can travel such a long distance in 100 years, it's still not enough. Even if you can travel 100 years in 100 years, once you enter the chaotic astral ocean, I estimate that you'll lose your life within a day. Why? Qin Yu asked in astonishment. Because the chaotic astral ocean is very dangerous, terrifyingly dangerous. Even Dujia stage experts don't dare to cross it at will. Only Deshang stage experts and some formidable loose immortals dare to cross the chaotic astral ocean at will. Uncle Lon said affirmatively. In Qin Yu's opinion, no matter how large the ocean is, as long as he is given enough time, he will definitely be able to cross it. After all, in Qin Yu's opinion, ordinary tsunamis and hurricanes simply do not pose much of a threat to Zionists like Qin Yu. However, according to Uncle Lan's words, this chaotic astral ocean is not as simple as an ordinary ocean. Uncle Lon said with a smile. For the time being, let's not talk about what's inside the chaotic astral ocean. You don't need to know right now. If you cross the chaotic astral ocean, you'll see a tranquil ocean. It's very similar to the ocean we're in. Qin Yu listened carefully. That ocean is also a lot larger than our ocean. After crossing that ocean, you'll find a huge continent, which is hundreds or thousands of times larger than the Qianlong continent. That continent is called the Tenglong continent. After talking for so long, Uncle Lon finally talked about the Tenglong continent. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. It turns out that the Tenglong continent and the Qianlong continent are separated by two tranquil oceans and the extremely dangerous chaotic astral ocean. The distance is really too far. The Qianlong continent is a continent of mortals. Mortals manage everything. But this Tunglong continent is the opposite. It's a continent of Zayationists. The number of Zayationists there is in the hundreds of millions. Uncle Lon exclaimed in admiration. Qin Yu is not really surprised. After all, in this overseas Xiozhen world, there are several million underwater Zioists alone. Including Zayationists, there are at least 7 to 8 million, even if there are not 10 million Zayationists. The Tunglong continent is obviously the core of Zayationists, so it's normal for there to be more Zayationists there. Uncle Lon took a sip of tea and said, "The Qianlong continent plus the water area you're in is called the north of the chaotic astral ocean. The Tunglong continent plus the tranquil ocean to its north is called the south of the chaotic astral ocean. The chaotic astral ocean is in the middle." Qin Yu nodded. Now he has more or less understood the general situation. Right, Uncle Lon, according to what you said, this place is extremely far from the Tunglong continent. How did Azure Dragon and some other experts get in touch with the Tunglong continent? Qin Yu asked doubtfully. Uncle Lon said, in the south of the Penglai Immortal region and the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon, close to the chaotic astral ocean, there's an island. There's an ancient teleportation formation on the island. This teleportation formation can directly teleport Zayationists from here to the Tunglong continent without having to go through the chaotic astral ocean. An ancient teleportation formation? Qin Yu pondered for a while. Uncle Lon continued. It's impossible to determine the age of this ancient teleportation formation. But the teleportation process of this formation is also very dangerous. Only those who have reached the Kongming stage can safely go through it. Those whose power is lower than the Kongming stage have a very high chance of dying. Kongming stage. Qin Yu suddenly understood. No wonder there are so few experts who have surpassed the Kongming stage in the overseas Xiozhen world here. According to Qin Yu's understanding, even if there are not many Zayationists, there should still be Dujia stage experts here after years of accumulation. But now, the early Kongming stage divine beast Azure Dragon is known as the #1 expert in the overseas Xiozhen world. It turns out that most of the top experts have gone to the Tunglong continent through the teleportation formation. No wonder it's like this. Xiaoyu. Uncle Lan's expression suddenly becomes serious. Qin Yu immediately listens carefully. You have to remember one thing. Don't ever enter the chaotic astral ocean out of curiosity, unless your power is at least comparable to a Dujia stage Zyuxianist. Uncle Lon is very clear about the terrors of the chaotic astral ocean, so naturally he has to remind him. Qin Yu nods, but he asks doubtfully, Uncle Lon, what's so dangerous about the chaotic astral ocean? Uncle Lon says with a smile. I'll tell you, Xiaoyu, if we talk about the number of experts, the degree of danger and so on. In the north of the chaotic astral ocean, the degree of danger is level 1. In the south of the chaotic astral ocean, the Tunglong continent is level 3, but the chaotic astral ocean is level 10. 1-3-10. Very clearly, Qin Yu knows the degree of danger of the chaotic astral ocean. Why is the chaotic astral ocean so dangerous? Qin Yu is really curious about why the chaotic astral ocean is so dangerous. Uncle Lon finally answers Qin Yu. Although the chaotic astral ocean has hurricanes and waves, it's not dangerous for Zayationists. The real danger comes from two places. One is the countless terrifying ferocious beasts at the bottom of the chaotic astral ocean. Uncle Lon says with a very serious expression. Ferocious beasts? Qin Yu is startled. Uncle Lon says with a nod. Yes, ferocious beasts. Xiaoyu, ferocious beasts are different from demonic beasts. Demonic beasts can transform into human form and gain intelligence, so they're not much different from humans. But ferocious beasts are the opposite. They have very low intelligence and simply can't transform into human form. They're brutal, bloodthirsty, and terrifying. Ordinary ferocious beasts are comparable to purple demon aquatic dragons. Powerful ferocious beasts are even comparable to divine beasts. Qin Yu is horrified in his heart. Brutal, bloodthirsty, and ordinary ferocious beasts are comparable to purple demon aquatic dragons. Powerful ones are comparable to divine beasts. Aren't these ferocious beasts just there to kill? The rules of heaven and earth are mysterious and strange, they're all-encompassing. One of the great dangers of the chaotic astral ocean is precisely these ferocious beasts. Generally, when Zayashinists want to travel through the chaotic astral ocean, they'll be attacked by these ferocious beasts. Uncle Lon says with a sigh. Qin Yu immediately asks, Uncle Lon, didn't you say there are two great dangers? What's the second one? Uncle Lon takes a sip of tea and says with a smile, no matter if it's the north or the south of the chaotic astral ocean, the history of the Zayashinist world is more than 1,000,000 years. For so many years, of course a large number of experts have gone through tribulations. Those who failed the tribulations have their souls scattered, and some have become loose immortals. Even though there are loose immortals on the Tunglong continent, most of them are in the chaotic astral ocean. Ah, Qin Yu is shocked. Even though the chaotic astral ocean is very dangerous, the nadins of those ferocious beasts are also treasures among loose immortals. I forgot to tell you that ferocious beasts are different from demonic beasts. They cultivate their nadins. Even after passing the Deshang stage, they still cultivate their nadins. Uncle Lon explains. Qin Yu originally thought that ferocious beasts were demonic beasts that have gone berserk. Now it seems that they are basically two different species. Demonic beasts cultivate Jin Dan and Yuanying. They have intelligence and are similar to humans. But ferocious beasts have low intelligence, are cruel and bloodthirsty, and can only cultivate their nadins. They can't transform into human form. Generally, loose immortals below the fourth tribulation stay on the Tunglong continent, because some ferocious beasts that have gone through the 9th heaven tribulation are as strong as immortals. Most of the fourth tribulation loose immortals, and even stronger loose immortals go into the chaotic astral ocean. Because fourth tribulation loose immortals are as strong as immortals. Uncle Lan's eyes also brighten. The chaotic astral ocean is much larger than the northern and southern parts of the chaotic astral ocean. There are countless treasures of heaven and earth. Ferocious beasts are even top-notch medicinal materials in the eyes of some formidable loose immortals. Some loose immortals have weird tempers. If you provoke them, not to mention the Dujia stage, even a Deshang stage Xiaxianist will probably lose his life. Qin Yu understands in his heart. Fourth tribulation loose immortals are as strong as immortals. Deshang stage Xiaxianists can't catch up with immortals. Moreover, in the chaotic astral ocean, fourth tribulation loose immortals are probably at the bottom. There are also some super experts hiding in the depths of the chaotic astral ocean. Who knows whether they are sixth tribulation loose immortals or eighth tribulation loose immortals? These are all monster-level characters who can destroy the world. Compared with those ferocious beasts, those loose immortals with unpredictable tempers are the most dangerous. However, for the current Qin Yu, no matter whether it is those peerless ferocious beasts or those terrifying loose immortals hiding in the depths of the chaotic astral ocean, they are all existences that he can't oppose. Uncle Lon, can I ask you a question? Qin Yu looks at Uncle Lon. He suddenly wants to know how many tribulation loose immortals Uncle Lon has passed. Chapter 161. Oh, Uncle Lon drinks a mouthful of tea then says smilingly, just ask whatever you want. Qin Yu always feels that Uncle Lan's gaze seems to be able to see through people's minds. Whatever he wants to ask or do, Uncle Lon seems to know. Qin Yu even suspects that Uncle Lon has a magic power that can see through people's minds. After discarding the random thoughts in his mind, Qin Yu says smilingly, Uncle Lon, before asking this question, let me ask you first. You said that loose immortals who have undergone 12 tribulations and 4 tribulations are equivalent to immortals. Can you explain in detail the power of immortals and loose immortals? Uncle Lon nods his head. Xiao Yu, each of the 12 tribulations of a loose immortal represents a different power. Immortals are divided into 9 levels. A 4th tribulation loose immortal is equivalent to a level 1 immortal, a 7th tribulation to a level 4 immortal, and a 12th tribulation to a level 9 immortal. Qin Yu understands clearly, but he continues to ask. Then what about the power of a first tribulation loose immortal, a second tribulation loose immortal, and a third tribulation loose immortal? A fourth tribulation loose immortal is equivalent to a level 1 immortal, so what are the power of the first 3 tribulations? Uncle Lon says with a shake of his head. This is very hard to say and very hard to be sure, because anyone who has reached the Dongshu stage can practice as a loose immortal once his physical body is destroyed. Xiao Yu, let me ask you, are the power of a Dongshu stage practitioner who abandons his physical body, a Kongming stage loose immortal who loses his physical body and then starts to practice, and a loose immortal who fails to undergo the tribulation the same? Of course not. Qin Yu answers matter-of-factly. There is simply no need to ask. A Dongshu stage loose immortal like Di Long whose physical body is destroyed can still be a loose immortal. However, how can he be compared with a Dujia stage expert who cultivates as a loose immortal? That's right. In the beginning, the power of loose immortals is uneven. A first tribulation loose immortal's power is also uncertain. A second tribulation loose immortal's power is roughly equivalent to the middle or late Dujia stage. It's also not completely certain, so it's very hard to say. A third tribulation loose immortal's power is generally equivalent to a Deshang stage Zionist. Uncle Lon gives a vague answer. Qin Yu was convinced by this answer. Of course, a Dujia stage cultivator who becomes an independent immortal is stronger than a Dongshu stage cultivator who becomes an independent immortal. Only with the passage of time would the gap between them become smaller and smaller. As a matter of fact, once one reaches the fourth tribulation loose immortal stage, it doesn't matter what stage one started as a loose immortal. However, most insightful emptiness realm loose immortals won't be able to survive the first heavenly tribulation. The higher one's cultivation, the greater the chance of success. However, the power of the heavenly tribulation was different for every cultivator. Generally speaking, those with higher skills have a higher chance of success, Uncle Lon said with certainty. Although the heavenly tribulation was a test for those who were going through the tribulation. However, those who were stronger wouldn't die more often than those who were weaker. Qin Yu smiles. Uncle Lon, alright, I roughly know about loose immortals and celestial immortals. Then, I want to ask you, Uncle Lon, what level of loose immortal are you? After saying this, Qin Yu looks at Uncle Lon expectantly. Uncle Lon is extremely mysterious. Azure Dragon and Old Three-Eyed are like ants in his hands. Qin Yu believes that only loose immortals can reach this level of power. Moreover, Uncle Lon easily teleported him and Ho Fei directly back to the Red Blood Cave. What level of loose immortal is Uncle Lon actually? 6th tribulation? 8th tribulation? 10th tribulation? Or is he a 12th tribulation loose immortal who can become a golden immortal with just one more step? You're asking me what level of loose immortal I am? Uncle Lon looks at Qin Yu in slight astonishment. Qin Yu nods very solemnly. Yes. Then Qin Yu says hurriedly. If you don't want to tell me, Uncle Lon, I won't force you. But I'm really curious. I really want to know what level of loose immortal you are, Uncle Lon. Haha. Uncle Lon bursts out laughing. Loose immortal, haha, loose immortal, Xiao Yu. Could it be you think that in the mortal world only loose immortals can teleport? Qin Yu says matter-of-factly. Of course. It's recorded in many Xiuzhen books that teleportation is a magic ability that only celestial immortals can use. In other words, even ordinary fourth tribulation loose immortals can use it. But celestial immortals can't exist in the mortal world. Uncle Lon, you teleported me and Fei. Uncle Lon, if you're not a loose immortal, what are you? In Qin Yu's view, Uncle Lon is undoubtedly a loose immortal. The question is how many loose immortal tribulations Uncle Lon is at? Uncle Lon says smilingly while shaking his head. Xiao Yu, let me tell you something. In the mortal world, loose immortals are not the only ones who can teleport. Qin Yu cannot help but be astonished. Seeing Uncle Lon's current expression, Qin Yu's heart leaps and he immediately asks. Could it be? Uncle Lon, you're not a loose immortal? Uncle Lon nods his head. That's right, I'm not a loose immortal. Xiao Yu, in the universe, the way of heaven is hard to find. There are all kinds of strange things. Many of them are things that you can't even imagine. Teleportation is not something that only loose immortals and celestial immortals can use. Uncle Lon is not a loose immortal. This is what Uncle Lon said himself. Looking at Uncle Lan's current expression and tone, Qin Yu understands that Uncle Lon is not lying. Uncle Lon, you said that there are all kinds of strange things in the universe. But didn't many Xiuzhen books say that teleportation is a magic ability that only celestial immortals can use? Why, you said? Qin Yu immediately asks. He cannot believe that so many Xiuzhen books are false. Uncle Lon ponders for a moment, then looks at Qin Yu and says, Xiao Yu, although the boundless world has many secrets, countless Xiuzhen cultivators and mortals all live in a normal world and within normal rules. You can barely treat me as a loose immortal expert. Qin Yu is startled. In the end, Uncle Lon does not explain his origin. Instead, he wants me to treat him as a loose immortal. Qin Yu can be sure that Uncle Lon is not a loose immortal. Uncle Lon, are you a celestial immortal? A celestial immortal who has descended to the mortal world? Qin Yu asks again. Uncle Lon shakes his head. Don't ask, you shouldn't know for the time being. In fact, you can just treat me as a loose immortal with decent strength. Okay, then I won't ask. Uncle Lon, when will the heir come to visit me? I haven't seen her for a long time. Qin Yu says to Uncle Lon with a smile. Uncle Lon says with a smile. She'll probably come over in a while. You'd better hurry up and build the stellar tower. Putting down the teacup, Uncle Lon stands up and walks out of the room directly. Looking at Uncle Lan's elegant back, Qin Yu feels that Uncle Lon seems to have merged with heaven and earth. Qin Yu also puts down the teacup and sighs in his heart. Uncle Lon, what is your identity and strength? You're not a loose immortal, but you want me to treat you as one? Mysterious. As for Uncle Lan's mysteriousness, since Uncle Lon is unwilling to tell me, what can Qin Yu do? He can only bury it in the bottom of his heart. Perhaps when the time comes, Uncle Lon will naturally tell me. The construction of the stellar tower immediately enters the agenda. The stellar tower does not expand. It's just the area of the Red Blood Cave. However, the architectural style is completely changed. Under Uncle Lan's personal guidance, the Red Blood Cave is completely demolished and pavilions are built. The stellar tower was designed by Uncle Lon personally. The various architectural styles and orientations are designed. According to Uncle Lan's explanation, the stellar tower is designed according to the legendary massive heavenly cycle stellar array that has long been lost. It is mainly designed to be close to nature, abandoning those huge and old-fashioned palaces. Instead, there are pavilions, towers, carved beams, and painted rafters. The materials used are also pearls, agate, black iron, pure gold, etc. Under the massive heavenly cycle stellar array, there are clouds and mist lingering, making it look like a paradise. The moonlight and the morning glow also appear in the stellar tower, making people sigh in amazement. In the entire stellar tower, there is a building every 10 steps and a pavilion every 5 steps. In the stellar tower, which is surrounded by clouds and mist, those pavilions and towers seem to be in the clouds and mist. Qin Yu, Ho Fei and those guardians all exclaim in amazement. Several tens of thousands of Zuyuists and millions of Xiantian demonic beasts were used to build the stellar tower. Most of them were used to mine some purple copper, black iron, pure gold and other materials. In the end, after 6 months and 3 days, the stellar tower was finally completed. Because the massive heavenly cycle stellar array is so abundant in holy energy that it has reached an astonishing level. The holy energy inside the stellar tower is 100 times that of the outside world. Even the surroundings of the stellar tower are diffused, and the holy energy is 10 times that of other places. Immediately, all kinds of buildings with an area 10 times larger than the stellar tower are built around it. The stellar tower stands in the very center, like a group of stars surrounding the moon. The holy energy that spreads out in all directions covers the buildings around it. The stellar tower has been completed. As for the buildings around the stellar tower for the guardians to live in, they have also been completed. Those buildings are made of ordinary materials, so naturally they are easy and fast to build. The building materials of the stellar tower are precious, and all kinds of holy grass and immortal trees are planted everywhere. Naturally, it takes a lot of time to build. Outside the stellar tower, Qinyu, Hofei, Kuro, Uncle Lan, a large group of guardians and other guardians, as well as a large group of guardians, are all looking at the stellar tower enviously. Going in and taking a stroll in such a blessed place is a kind of luxury. Only the captain of the guardians and the 3 tower masters live in the stellar tower. There are also some maids who are specialized in guarding the tower. Wow! Hofei opens his fiery eyes wide as he looks at the stellar tower in front of him. Wow! Wow! Hofei exclaims in admiration again. Then he looks at Uncle Lan on one side with tearful eyes. Master, the difference between how you treat me and Big Brother is too big, too big. You make me so sad. When we were in the inner valley, you told me to find a random cave to live in. Now you have given Big Brother such a blessed place. Uncle Lan smacks Hofei on the head. Little monkey, you're asking for a beating. This stellar tower is little use. Isn't it yours? Uncle Lan deliberately says with a straight face. Hofei immediately beamed with joy and said, Hehe, master. I was just joking. But this massive heavenly cycle stellar formation is really powerful. When the massive heavenly cycle stellar formation is activated, people outside the formation cannot enter, and people inside the formation are trapped in illusions. Not only does it have the effect of trapping people, it also has the effect of creating illusions. It also has the effect of gathering the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and the brilliance of the stars. Qinyu is also very satisfied. He had once seen the 12 gates formation of the 9 spirits hall, and felt that it was very good. But compared to his massive heavenly cycle stellar formation, it pales in comparison. His own formation would not attack. It has the effect of gathering the holy energy of the universe, and the brilliance of the sun, the moon and the stars. Once it attacks, it becomes an exceptionally good formation for trapping and killing people. Moreover, this formation was personally set up by Uncle Lan. Qinyu believes that at least in the overseas Xiozhen world, it is simply a pipe dream to break this formation. Afterwards, everybody enters the stellar tower happily. Ever since Azure Dragon, Old Ancestor Three-Eyed and D-Long parted ways with Qinyu's Uncle Lan, they immediately ordered the 2 caves under their command to be directly under Qinyu's stellar tower. Those caves are not far from the Red Blood Cave. 3 months before the stellar tower was built, they came to see Qinyu. Originally, the 2 caves under the command of the 9 spirits hall that are closest to Qinyu were the Great Shell Cave and the Fufeng Cave. However, when the 3D brothers took Qinyu to the 9 spirits hall, Di Jian and Di Luan swept through the Great Shell Cave and started a massacre there because of Di Qing's death. Therefore, the Great Shell Cave was destroyed, and the newly built cave was called the Mangjiao Cave. The 2 caves under the command of the 9 spirits hall are called the Mangjiao Cave and the Fufeng Cave. The 2 caves under the command of the Blue Dragon Temple are called the Black Flood Dragon and the 6 Eyes Cave. The 2 caves under the command of the Blue River Province are called the Orange Wings Cave and the Snow Feather Cave. These 6 caves are all under the command of the Stellar Tower. The core territory of the Stellar Tower is the former territory of the Red Blood Cave. To the outside world, the 6 caves under the command of the Stellar Tower are respectively the 6 caves, Mangjiao Cave, Fufeng Cave, Black Flood Dragon, 6 Eyes Cave, Orange Wings Cave and Snow Feather Cave. Since then, the Stellar Tower has become so large and powerful that it has surpassed the 9 Spirits Hall and become the 3rd biggest power in the underwater Shuyao world, second only to the Blue Dragon Temple and the Blue River Province. It is also one of the 6 biggest powers in the overseas Xiozhen world. At the same time, the Jade Identity cards have started to be manufactured rapidly as early as half a year ago. There are 7 kinds of Jade Identity cards: Stellar, Stellar Asterisk Mangjiao, Stellar Asterisk Fufeng Cave, Stellar Asterisk Black Flood Dragon, Stellar Asterisk 6 Eyes, Stellar Asterisk Orange Wings Cave and Stellar Asterisk Snow Feather Cave. After being sensed by the subordinates of the Stellar Tower, the Stellar Asterisk 6 Eyes Cave, the Stellar Asterisk Orange Wings Cave, and the stellar asterisk Snow Feather Cave have finally succeeded. Moreover, the emergence of the stellar tower has caused many experts who have been hiding in secret places to recommend themselves, wanting to become the guardians of the stellar tower. Qin Yu never knew that there were so many experts in the stellar tower. Qin Yu even directly ordered that the minimum requirement for guardians is to have an offensive power of at least the early Dongshu stage. As a result, Teng Bai was the only guardian left. The stellar tower now has 8 guardians. Unexpectedly, Guardian Teng Bai is the one with the lowest power level. Qin Yu still left a way out for them. Ye Zhong and the other guardians have been demoted to become captains of the guards. Because the stellar tower is now very powerful, the number of guardians has increased from about 5,000 in the past to 30,000 now. Of the 30,000 guardians, 100 are a small squad and 10 small squads are a large squad. There are 30 large squad captains in total. The area of the stellar tower is about the same as that of the Red Blood Cave in the past. The Red Blood Cave can accommodate 5,000 guardians, and so many people. Naturally, the 8 guardians, 30 large squad captains, 300 small squad captains, and some necessary maids and guards are also living in the stellar tower. Therefore, the stellar tower, which is comparable to the Blue Dragon Temple, the Blue River Province and the Nine Spirits Hall, is finally worthy of its name. Chapter 162. The entire star tower was arranged according to the cosmic stars' formation. Not only was the spiritual chi of heaven and earth floating everywhere, but the brilliance of the sun, moon and stars also gathered in the star tower. The most dazzling one was in the center of the star tower, the Sun Moon Hall. The Sun Moon Hall was the place where the guardians, guard captains and guard captains met the 3 pavilion masters. The Sun Moon Hall did not have a roof. Looking up, one could see countless stars hanging high in the sky. Above the hall, behind the thrones of the 3 pavilion masters, there was the brilliance of the sun and moon shining. Stepping into the Sun Moon Hall was like entering another world. It was very wonderful. The star tower had been built for almost 2 years. In these 2 years, the star tower had completely entered the normal orbit. Uncle Lon, Miss Lear, Yanzi and the others also often came to the star tower to play. Qin Yu was also happy to receive them. At this moment, in the Sun Moon Hall of the star tower. In the hall, Qin Yu sat in the center. Ho Fei and Kuro sat on both sides. Behind the 3 of them, there was the brilliance of the sun and moon gathered by the cosmic stars' formation. The brilliance of the sun and moon soared into the sky, but it made the 3 pavilion masters feel a sense of pressure. The 8 guardians, the 30 guard captains, and the 300 guard captains stood in 2 rows in the hall. Qin Yu always thought that the Sun Moon Hall was more luxurious than the Imperial Palace Hall in the Hidden Dragon Continent. At the same time, it was also more magnificent. The stars were the sky, the sun and the moon were the curtain, and the spiritual chi clouds were floating in the hall. The subordinates were like immortals. Greetings, Pavilion Master, 2nd Pavilion Master and 3rd Pavilion Master. More than 300 people all bowed respectfully and shouted. Their voices resounded in the hall. After that, the subordinates all looked at Qin Yu respectfully, waiting for Qin Yu's order. The eyes of the 8 guardians and the 30 guard captains were blazing, because today was the big day to choose the general manager of the Star Tower. The general manager of the Star Tower was generally in charge of all affairs. His position was high, second only to the 3 pavilion masters, and was superior to the 8 guardians. Logically speaking, they should have chosen someone to be the chief steward long ago. It was just that Ho Fei liked to be in charge, and had been in charge for 2 years. Qin Yu also knew Ho Fei's temper. Sure enough, after having his fill, Ho Fei was too lazy to care about those trivial matters. Therefore it was time to choose a chief steward. Manager, you must have the ability, and your skills must not be low. After all, they were only second to the pavilion master, so the candidates were set to be the 8 great protectors and the 30 guard captains. Pavilion Master, the last time you said that you wanted to choose a chief steward. I wonder if you have an answer? The protector on the left stood in the center and bowed. This protector was the current leader of the 8 protectors of the Starry Pavilion, Yin Rui. After turning into human form, she looked like a woman. His cultivation had already reached the late Dongxi realm. Hearing Yin Rui's words, the other protectors and the 30 guard captains all looked at Qinyu with blazing eyes. Qinyu was only wearing a black robe and sitting in the center. In fact, the subordinates of the Starry Hall had prepared very luxurious clothes for Qinyu. However, Qinyu liked some clothes made by his master Lei Wei in the past. The robe made by Lei Wei looked very simple, but in fact, it was much more comfortable than the luxurious clothes provided by the subordinates of the Starry Hall. It was just gold and jade inside. Protector Yin Rui, don't be anxious. We 3 brothers have already come to a conclusion on this matter. Now, let the second pavilion master reveal the answer for you. Qinyu looked at Hou Fei with a smile. Immediately, more than 300 gazes turned to Hou Fei. Hou Fei grinned. This position of the Starry Hall's general manager is naturally very important. Therefore, we 3 brothers have carefully selected him. Cough. Now I will announce the candidate. Qinyu smiled. This Hou Fei actually knew how to whet people's appetite. The 8 great protectors and the 30 guard captains all looked at Hou Fei. One of them could be the general manager second only to the 3 pavilion masters. A general manager could manage most things. There were many benefits to such a lucrative position. This general manager is Ye Zhong. Hou Fei finally announced the answer. Ye Zhong couldn't help but become excited. He immediately walked to the center and knelt down on one knee. Thank you, pavilion masters, for your kindness. I will definitely manage the matters of the Starry Hall well. I will definitely not disappoint the 3 pavilion masters. Ye Zhong's voice was full of energy. He couldn't hide his excitement at all. Although the guard captains had a lot of power, they had directly leaped over the 8 great protectors to become the general manager second only to the pavilion master. How could Ye Zhong not be happy? This was not an ordinary general manager. This was the general manager of the Starry Hall, which was at the same level as the Blue Dragon Temple, the Blue River Province, and the 9 Spirits Hall. His power was much greater. Now Ye Zhong was indeed in a high position and had a lot of power. Okay, General Manager Ye Zhong, from today onwards, you will be the general manager. Qinyu said directly. Half a year later will be the opening day of the Starry Hall. At that time, people from the Penglai Immortal region, the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon, the Blue Dragon Temple, the Blue River Province, and the 9 Spirits Hall will all come to congratulate us. Therefore, as soon as Qinyu said this, the attention of the people below was completely focused on this aspect. The opening of the Starry Hall was such a big event. Because of the high status of the Starry Hall, this event would cause a sensation in the entire overseas Xiuzhen world. At that time, all the major forces would come to congratulate us. This would definitely be a big gathering of experts in the overseas Xiuzhen world. Ye Zhong, get ready at once. There are still many residences in the Starry Hall. You have to let the other 5 parties feel the magnanimity of the Starry Hall. Also, you have to prepare for the grand banquet on the opening day in advance. This is your first task as the general manager. Qinyu stared at Ye Zhong and said. Qinyu did not doubt Ye Zhong's talent at all. Moreover, Ye Zhong had followed Qinyu for a long time. Therefore, Qinyu gave the general manager position to Ye Zhong. Yes, this subordinate will definitely not let the hall master down. Ye Zhong's voice was sonorous and powerful. His eyes were sharp and firm. Seeing this, a satisfied smile appeared on Qinyu's face. Kaka, Ye Zhong, I will often come to check. If I find that you have done something excessive, don't blame me. Hou Fei said with a smile. Ye Zhong promised with a smile. He did not care about Hou Fei's words at all. Although Hou Fei was satisfied to let the general manager manage the affairs of the Starry Hall. Who knew when he would be itchy and come to check again? In fact, as the general manager, Ye Zhong still had to be careful. Well, if there is nothing else, everyone can leave. Qinyu waved his robe and left the hall directly. Kuro, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were terrifyingly sharp. Even Yin Rui, who was at the late Dongxi stage, felt the terror in Kuro's eyes when she saw Kuro's eyes. It was not because of the sharpness in Kuroa's eyes, but because Kuroa's eyes gave off a feeling of devouring people's hearts. Since quietly practicing in the massive heavenly cycle stellar formation, Kuro had finally reached the late Yuanying stage. Even Hou Fei admitted that he was not sure if he could defeat Kuro, who had reached the late Yuanying stage. If Hou Fei represented violence and brutality, then Kuro represented coldness and darkness. Kuroa's body moved and disappeared from the hall. After reaching the late Yuanying stage, Kuroa's speed was actually not inferior to Qin Yu's. Qin Yu and Hou Fei had both reached the peak of the late Yuanying stage. At the peak, they could no longer break through by absorbing power. Now they could only wait quietly for the arrival of the 6 in 9 heavenly tribulation. Perhaps they would be able to sense the arrival of the 6 in 9 heavenly tribulation. Times after going out of the main hall, Qin Yu walks along a small bridge, a running stream, pavilions, terraces, towers and many winding corridors. Finally, he comes to a pavilion surrounded by clouds and mist. This is none other than Miss Li Er's residence. Yanzi and Xiao Jin were playing in the lake beside the pavilion. "Brother Qin Yu, you're here. You must be looking for Sister Li Er. Sister Li Er is fishing over there," Yanzi said with a smile. On one side, Xiao Jin also blinks her eyes at Qin Yu a couple of times, then signals her to look at Miss Li Er. "You two little girls." Qin Yu smiled and stepped on the blue waves directly to the pavilion in the center of the lake. After the stellar tower was built, there was no need to use any restrictions. The massive heavenly cycle stellar formation naturally repelled water. The interior of the stellar tower was like a completely new space. Li Er's long hair was slightly tied up with a hairband. Her entire body was white. Only her waist was tied tightly with a white hairband, outlining her moving curves. Qin Yu stood in the pavilion and looked at Li Er, who was sitting by the pavilion and concentrating on fishing. "Qin Yu, what are you looking at?" Li Er turned her head and said with a smile. That smile made Qin Yu's eyes light up. "I'm looking at you fishing." Qin Yu smiled and sat beside Li Er. Qin Yu always felt that Li Er seemed to isolate herself from the world, whether it was Yanzi or other people. Although Li Er was warm and friendly, that was only on the surface. Only when she was with him could that barrier be removed. "Li Er, you've never told me about your father and mother. Can you tell me about them?" Qin Yu said with a smile. Li Er was startled. She pondered for a moment and then nodded. "My father's status was very high. He always competed with others for status and power. Therefore, he didn't have much contact with me." Li Er's eyes had a touch of sadness. Qin Yu's heart trembled. Suddenly, his heart surged with emotions. Wasn't he the same? Qin Yu tried hard to suppress his shocked mood and said, "It seems that your father was a big shot." Li Er nodded and said, "Yes, he was a big shot. Many people I saw when I was young were so respectful and in awe of my father. No one dared to resist him. But there were other big shots. They competed with each other and even killed each other. I was tired of it and left home with Uncle Lon to wander outside. Maybe you're a girl. Because I'm a boy. My experience was very similar to yours. My father was a prince of the Chu dynasty in the Qianlong continent. He wanted to take revenge and fulfill the expectations of his ancestors for hundreds of years. He concentrated on teaching big brother and second brother. He didn't pay attention to me, his third son. But I was different from you. I didn't get tired of it. Instead, I worked hard to practice. I wanted to do something useful for my father." Qin Yu says disappointedly. After so many years, thinking about it now, Qin Yu instead has a feeling that the sea has turned into mulberry fields. He vaguely saw the child who, in the hot summer and cold winter, kept running while carrying a heavy load. He kept using his fingers to insert sand and stones into his iron palm. "Girl." Li Er's eyes flashed with a trace of tenacity. "No, I was like you at first. I wanted to help my father, but something happened that made me bitterly disappointed. It made Uncle Lon bitterly disappointed." Li Er's eyes were full of pain. Qin Yu looked at Li Er. He didn't know what kind of experience Li Er had, but he knew that it must have been very serious. "Hey, a fish took the bait." Li Er's eyes suddenly lit up. She put away the fishing rod and caught a big fish that was 5 or 6 jeans. Li Er, who was still immersed in the pain of recalling the past, was now smiling excitedly because she caught a fish. She seemed to have forgotten what happened just now. Qinyu, have your chess skills improved? Do you want to play Go or Chinese chess? If we play Chinese chess, I'll give you a handicap of 1 rook, 1 horse and 1 cannon. If we play Go, I'll give you a handicap of 4 stones. Li Er looked at Qinyu with ridicule. She waved her hand and 2 chessboards appeared. Chinese chess Go? This. Qinyu, who was still at ease a moment ago, now became nervous. Playing Go with Li Er was like being slaughtered. If they played Chinese chess, he would give her a handicap of 1 rook, 1 horse and 1 cannon. If they played Go, he would give her a handicap of 4 stones. But even so, he was still defeated without a chance of winning. It was not that he was weak. It was just that Li Er was extraordinarily strong. Qinyu dared to guarantee that even if his father, military counselor Su Yuan, and Li Er played Go with a handicap of 4 stones, they would not be able to win. Times above the boundless ocean, various auspicious clouds suddenly came drifting over. There were several tens Xiaxianists on the clouds. The leader was none other than the number 1 of the Penglai Immortal region, Reverend Yin Su. This group of people was none other than the Penglai Immortal region's party, heading for the Stellar Tower. The day of the Stellar Tower's opening is near. The Penglai Immortal region, and the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon, are extremely far away from the Stellar Tower, so it would take them almost a year to fly there. Therefore they had to come in advance. This was also the reason why Qinyu said that the Stellar Tower would open 3 years later. Reverend Yin Su is the leader. On his 2 sides, one is a young man with long fiery red hair, and the other is a handsome young man with fluttering white hair. Reverend Yin Su, that Stellar Tower is only an underwater Zuyuist power, even though it has loose immortals behind it, but letting us go to its mansion is really. The young man with long fiery red hair has a hint of disdain. Most Xiaxianists disdain Zuyuist mansions because they consider them to be of low quality. Reverend Huatian, Zuyuists have always had low taste in architecture. They only know how to build palaces. How can they compare with our immortals' blessed lands? But Zuyuists are undoubtedly powerful. Architecture is only the exterior. What's most important is their power. That white-haired young man says. The young man with long fiery red hair says frowningly. Reverend Di Feng, I only said that Zuyuists' architecture is bad, not that they are weak. I really don't feel comfortable living in that kind of place. Reverend Huatian, Reverend Di Feng, you've never seen the Stellar Tower, so you don't need to casually comment. Reverend Yin Su says indifferently. However, even though Reverend Yin Su said so, in fact even he himself looks down on Zuyuists' mansions. To Xiaxianists and Xiamoists, Xiaxianists only have the right to look down on Zuyuists in technical work, such as weapon forging, pill making and mansion building. All of the Xiaxianists start to talk about how bad Zuyuists' mansions are. We've arrived at the Stellar Tower. Reverend Yin Su suddenly says. All of the Xiaxianists immediately stop talking. Even though Reverend Huatian and Reverend Di Feng look young, they are actually not much older than Reverend Yin Su. They are even grand elders of the Xiang school and the Lanyang school. Reverend Yin Su, Reverend Huatian, and Reverend Di Feng are the actual rulers of the Penglai Immortal region. Dozens of immortal cultivators flew towards the sea. Wherever they passed, the sea water parted. Unable to get close to them at all, a passageway automatically appeared, and these dozens of immortal cultivators flew directly towards the stellar pavilion at an extremely fast speed. Chapter 163, led by Reverend Yin Su, Reverend Huatian, and Reverend Di Feng. Several tens Xiaxianists dive straight down to the bottom of the ocean. Wherever they go, a passage is naturally opened by the Xiaxianists' elemental energy. In just a while, the Xiaxianists have already reached the bottom of the ocean and entered the territory of the Blood-Red Ridge, which is now the Stellar Ridge. Reverend Yin Su says indifferently, "Everybody, this is the Stellar Ridge, the territory of the Stellar Tower. I hope you'll follow some rules and don't annoy the Stellar Tower. That won't be good." "Don't worry, Reverend. We'll keep that in mind. Most of these Xiaxianists respond. Reverend Huitian looks around and says smilingly, Reverend Difeng, I was right, wasn't I? There are several 100,000 Zuyoists in this stellar ridge, but its buildings are very vulgar. Could it be they don't know formations? The Qingshu Temple's position in the Prenglai Immortal region is unshakable. Second only to it are the two big schools, the Xiang School and the Lanyang School. Because Reverend Yen Su is extremely powerful, the Qingshu Temple's position is naturally unshakable. However, the two grand elders of the Xiang School and the Lanyang School are incompatible with each other. Reverend Difeng says with an indifferent smile. Humph. You also know that there are several 100,000 Zuyoists here. In our Penglai Immortal region, the schools with the most disciples only have several tens of thousands. The total number of disciples is just over 1 million. Of the underwater Zuyoists, none of the four big powers is much weaker than us. The Blue Dragon Temple and the Blue River Province are even a bit stronger than us. Reverend Huitian, taste is secondary. Power is the most important thing. Moreover, I think your taste is also ordinary. What did you say, Difeng? Reverend Huitian is furious at once. This treasured robe on Reverend Huitian's body was bestowed to him by the Xiang School's headquarters on the Tunglong continent. Reverend Huitian usually wears this robe for important matters, but Reverend Difeng always says that this robe is too vulgar and has low taste. What did you say? You really think your robe is a treasure? Reverend Difeng gives a disdainful smile. If you want to fight, let's go back first. Yen Su's voice turns cold. Huitian and Difeng immediately gives a cold humph and says no more. The other Zuyoists also do not dare to interrupt them. Not long after, the cultivators finally saw the stellar tower in the distance. The moment they saw the stellar tower, all the cultivators were dumbfounded. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Looking from afar, the stellar pavilion exuded the brilliance of the sun and the moon. It was very dazzling on the seabed, as attractive as a bright pearl. The surging spiritual energy made all the cultivators gasp in amazement. This is the Star Pavilion. None of the Xiaxianists present can believe this. In their eyes, Zuyoists are barbarians. Even though Zuyoists have pretty good power, how can they compare with humans in terms of construction, weapon forging and pill concocting? However, the Star Pavilion in front of him, the buildings around the stellar tower, were the living quarters for the guards. There were 30,000 guards. This was something that the Penglai Immortal region simply could not compare with. Who are you? There is a large troop of 1,000 Zuyoists guarding the outermost perimeter. The leader of this troop is none other than Wu Tong, the guardian of the Red Blood Cave. We've come from the Penglai Immortal region to congratulate the opening of the stellar tower. Fellow Xiaxianists, please go and inform them. A disciple of the Qingshu Temple directly takes out an identity card and says at once. Wu Tong discovered early on that this group of people did not have any demonic aura. Moreover, he was already informed that the other 5 powers would be coming soon, so he already had a guess. As soon as he hears this answer, he says at once, Fellow Xiaxianists, please wait a moment. I'll go and inform them right away. While saying, Wu Tong curses in his heart. Xiaxianists and Zuyoists are really weird. Why do they have to call me fellow Xiaxianists? Why don't they just call me brother? After saying so, Wu Tong flies straight towards the stellar tower. In a short while, Qin Yu and Ho Fei come to welcome them personally with the 8 guardians. Among the top members of the stellar tower, Kuro is the only one who does not feel like coming. Haha, fellow Xiaxianists. Qin Yu, dressed in a long robe and smiling, leads the 8 guardians under him to welcome the Penglai Immortal Region's people. I am Qin Yu, the master of the stellar tower. This is my brother, second master Ho Fei. These 8 are the guardians of my stellar tower. Looking at this group of Xiaxianists before him, Qin Yu gives a general introduction to his subordinates first. Reverend Yen Su says smilingly at once, So it's Tower Master Qin Yu. I'm the Grand Elder of the Qingshu Temple, Reverend Yen Su. This is Reverend Huitian of the Xiang School. And this is Reverend Difeng of the Lanyang School. The other Xiaxianists who have come with us are not going to be introduced one by one. Reverend Yen Su, Reverend Huitian, Reverend Difeng. Qin Yu salutes them one by one, then says smilingly, "Please follow me, everyone." Qin Yu and Reverend Yen Su walk side by side. Hou Fei, Reverend Huitian, and Reverend Difeng follow closely behind them. The 8 guardians and the other Xiaxianists follow them at the back. This group of people then flies directly towards the stellar tower in such a grandiose manner. The closer they get to the stellar tower, the more amazed Reverend Yen Su and the others become. Is this still a Zioist's mansion? Perhaps even a Xiaxianist's cave, or blessed land is far inferior to this. Qin Yu secretly observes the Xiaxianist's expressions. He laughs in his heart. It's true that Xiaxianists mostly look down on Zioist's residences. They enter the interior of the stellar tower. The great heavenly stellar formation has caused the entire area of the stellar tower to be covered in clouds and mist. Various magnificent pavilions and corridors are just like the buildings of immortals. All of the Xiaxianists are dumbfounded by this sight. Other Xiaxianist schools do have such dense holy energy that it produces mist, but the holy energy in the entire area of the stellar tower is really too large. Moreover, the morning glow, the evening glow, the starlight, the moonlight, the sunlight, because the great heavenly stellar formation produces the light of the sun, the moon and the stars, the Xiaxianists on the scene find it even harder to believe. Fellow Taoists, this place is called the Penglai Garden. It was specially built to receive fellow Taoists. Fellow Taoists, please enter. If there's anything you need, feel free to instruct those maids. Qin Yu said with a smile. However, these Xiaxianists are really too shocked on the way here. They have not yet come to their senses when Qin Yu suddenly speaks. My fellow Xiaxianists, could it be, you're not satisfied with this place? Qin Yu continues to ask. Ah no. Reverend Yen Su's eyes are full of delight. I've never seen this blessed land either. It's really pleasing to the eyes to be able to enjoy the immortal scenery of the stellar tower. How can I not be satisfied? Reverend Difeng also says smilingly. My fellow Xiaxianist Qin Yu, the wonders of the stellar tower's construction have already exceeded our imagination. Reverend Difeng suddenly looks at Reverend Huitian and says mockingly, Reverend Huitian, before you came, didn't you say that this stellar tower? Difeng. Reverend Huitian says hurriedly. If Reverend Difeng had really said it out loud, he would have lost a lot of face. Even though he is such a proud person, he has no choice but to admit that this stellar tower has indeed exceeded his imagination. Compared with the stellar tower, the buildings of his own school are of low quality. Reverend Difeng gives a smile and does not continue to speak. Before the Penglai Immortal Region's representatives arrived, the representatives of the Blue Dragon Temple have already arrived. As time goes by, in a half-month, the representatives of the Blue River Province, the 9 Spirits Hall, and the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon have arrived in succession. Now the representatives of the 5 superpowers have all arrived. The Stellar Tower's opening ceremony is something that ordinary caves are not qualified to attend. Only the 5 superpowers are qualified to come to congratulate it. Several days later, on the opening day of the Stellar Tower, in the Sun Moon Hall of the Stellar Tower, the Sun Moon Hall is extremely large. At the moment, several tens banquets have been set up in the hall. The representatives of the other 5 superpowers are all exclaiming in admiration. Above their heads are countless stars. Various beautiful maids are bringing up various delicacies. The experts of the overseas Xiozhen world are also very happy. In the innermost part of the hall, the other banquets are all some distance away from this one. There are only 6 people at this table, namely Azure Dragon, Old Freak Three-Eyed, Reverend Yen Su, Ida Qin Yu and Di Long. These are definitely the number 1 figures of the 6 superpowers. Hou Fei, Kuro Di Jian, Tung Shan Luko, Reverend Difeng, Reverend Huitian and Situ Shui are also at another table. Brother Qin Yu has opened the restaurant. Everybody, let's toast Tower Master Qin Yu. Azure Dragon is the first to raise his cup. Immediately, Old Freak Three-Eyed, Reverend Yen Su, Ida, Di Long and the others also raise their cups to congratulate him. Qin Yu also raises his cup modestly. Afterwards, the 6 of them drink up their cups in one gulp. Immediately, The 6 people at the table start to talk enthusiastically. Most of the things they talk about are trivial matters. These 6 people can be considered the 6 big shots of the overseas Xiozhen world. They can totally represent the overseas Xiozhen world. Perhaps ordinary people cannot imagine that these 6 people are talking about each other's scandals, jokes, and so on when they get together. Brother Qinyu, let me ask you a question. If you get it right, I'll give you 3 top-grade holy weapons. What do you think? Azure Dragon, who is drunk, says smilingly to Qinyu. Now Qinyu is no longer as polite as he was at the beginning. 3, all right. Don't go back on your word when the time comes. Feel free to ask. Azure Dragon says smilingly. Qinyu, you should know Ida's nickname, Purple-Haired Dungeon King, right? Do you know how he got his nickname? Qinyu takes a look at this purple-haired Dungeon King Ida, and says at once, Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon. Since Brother Ida is the number 1 figure in this dungeon, naturally he's the Dungeon King. He also has purple hair, so he's called Purple-Haired Dungeon King. Am I right? No. Azure Dragon shouts at once, then laughs out loud complacently. I knew you guessed wrong. Ida slowly puts down his wine cup and raises his drooping eyes to look at Azure Dragon. The purple light in his eyes makes him look demonic. Azure Dragon, I've noticed that you're always talking about me. You also talked about me on the day the 9 Spirits Hall was opened, right? There is a warm smile on Reverend Yin Su's face. Don't bicker with Azure Dragon, Ida. It's not like you don't know his character. Master of the Blue Dragon Temple, you still haven't told me the origin of Brother Ida's nickname Purple-Haired Dungeon King. Qinyu asks at once. Old Freak Three-Eyed, however, says, let me tell you. In the past, Jiao Jiao and Situ Shui in the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon fought over the position of the No. But Ida, who has no school or backing, directly captured Jiao Jiao and Situ Shui and put them in prison for 3 whole years. He didn't talk to Jiao Jiao and Situ Shui either. Only after 3 years did he ask them whether or not he was the number 1 figure in the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon. Qinyu is startled. Azure Dragon laughs out loud, saying, This Ida has a strange temper. Whenever he captures someone, he puts them in prison and seals their power. He only interrogates them after several years. Because he likes to lock people up, some experts call him Dungeon King. Ida drinks a cup of wine and says grimly, I hate talking so much nonsense with people the most. If I seal their power and lock them up for 3 years, loneliness alone will drive them crazy. After 3 years, if I tell them to do something, if they don't agree, I'll lock them up for another 10 or 20 years. Qinyu is startled. If his power is sealed, he won't even be able to do closed-door training, and will always be locked up with nobody to talk to. These days are really painful. The number 1 figure in the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon, before Ida, is usually called Devil King. Only Ida is called Dungeon King. Old Freak Three-Eyed says smilingly, but his words contain praise for Ida obviously. He approves of Ida's behavior very much. On one side, however, Dilong drinks to drown his sorrows. 5 of the original 9 brothers have died, so the 9 Spirits Hall's power has been greatly damaged. Naturally, in the eyes of the other powers, the 9 Spirits Hall's status has declined. They casually talk about each other's affairs. After a long time, Reverend Yin Su suddenly waves his hand. His elemental energy rushes out, and immediately sets up restrictive spells around everybody. The other 5 immediately look doubtfully at Reverend Yin Su. Reverend Yin Su says smilingly, I set up restrictive spells because I have something important to discuss with you all. Speak, what's so mysterious? Azure Dragon says smilingly. Ida, however, gives Reverend Yin Su a cold look. The others say nothing, quietly waiting for him to speak. Reverend Yin Su says smilingly, everybody present already represents the powers of the entire overseas Xiozhen world. Now what I want to talk about is the 9 Swords Immortal Mansion. Azure Dragon, Old Freak Three-Eyed, Ida, Qinyu and Dilong immediately put down their wine cups and start to listen carefully to Reverend Yin Su. Reverend Yin Su looks at Qinyu. Tower Master Qinyu, the 8th Jade Sword is in your hands, right? Qinyu is puzzled in his heart. What does Reverend Yin Su want to talk about? He suddenly remembers that when the people of the Blue Dragon Temple first came to the Stellar Tower, Azure Dragon once told him, "Brother Qinyu, the legendary 9 swords has 9 jade swords in total. The Penglai Immortal region is the one who wants another jade sword the most. There are many schools in the Penglai Immortal region, including 3 big schools, but they only have 1 jade sword, so it's a bit difficult to distribute it." Right, I wonder why Reverend Yin Su is asking about this. Qinyu becomes vigilant in his heart. Reverend Yin Su says with a nod, "As far as I know, my Penglai Immortal region has the 1st jade sword. The Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon has the 3rd and the 5th. The Blue Dragon Temple has the 4th and the 7th. The Blue River Province has the 2nd. The 9 Spirits Hall has the 6th and the Stellar Tower has the 8th. Am I right, everybody?" The leaders of the other 5 powers all nod. "Therefore, I hope everybody can lend me your jade swords for a while," Reverend Yin Su says smilingly. Chapter 164. Even though Reverend Yin Su looks like a nice old man, his words give the other 5 people a big fright. He unexpectedly wants to borrow jade swords from all of them. How can jade swords be borrowed so casually? Yin Su, have you become muddle-headed? Which one of us didn't try every means and risk our lives to get a jade sword? You even want to borrow jade swords from all of us at once. Have you lost your mind? Azure Dragon says frowningly. Di Long says coldly, "Reverend Yin Su, this is a serious matter. I can't agree." Di Long simply refuses without asking why. Ida clamps his hair between his fingers and says with a cold laugh, "Reverend Yin Su, you'd better make things clear. Jade swords aren't like other holy weapons. Have you secretly obtained the 9th jade sword and want to borrow it from us, then explore the 9 swords immortal mansion by yourself?" No, of course not. Seeing the great change in everybody's attitude, Reverend Yin Su says smilingly at once, "Our Penglai Immortal region didn't obtain the 9th jade sword either. The reason why I want to borrow your jade swords is to explore the location of the 9th jade sword." "Oh," Qinyu says frowningly. "Reverend Yin Su, you mean we'll gather the other 8 jade swords to explore the location of the 9th jade sword?" Qinyu has heard that holy weapons forged at the same time can usually sense each other, and can use a secret method to make a jade sword search for another jade sword. "Yes, that's exactly it," Reverend Yin Su hurriedly says. "Nobody knows where the 9th jade sword is. Now that 8 jade swords have appeared, I think we'd better not waste time and use these 8 jade swords to search for the location of the 9th jade sword directly." Qinyu, Azure Dragon, Old Freak Three-Eyed, Ida and even Di Long, who did not agree just now, all become silent. After a while, Qinyu says smilingly with a nod, "Reverend Yin Su, since you have this secret method to search, I'll do my best too. When the time comes, I'll lend my 8th jade sword to you to search for it. But you'd better use the method to search in my stellar tower. Don't take the jade sword away." As soon as Qinyu said that, Azure Dragon also said in a clear voice, "I can lend you the jade sword, but you can only do it when you cast the technique to investigate. Moreover, you have to do it in the stellar pavilion, in front of all of us. If you try to take the jade sword away, then don't blame us for teaming up to deal with you." Reverend Yin Su does not mind at all. He says smilingly, "Don't worry, leader of the Blue Dragon Temple. I'm not tired of living. I'm no match for you even if you join forces, let alone the 5 of you. I can assure you that I will use the secret technique in the Star Pavilion, in the Penglai Park where I live. When it's time to cast the technique, you can lend me your jade swords," Reverend Yin Su says to the 5 of them. Hearing this, even Di Long, who didn't agree just now, pondered for a moment and nodded. "All right, since everybody has agreed, I'll give you a brief account of the process of searching for the 9th jade sword." Reverend Yin Su explains, "My secret technique can allow the 8 jade swords to sense the location of the 9th jade sword. Then, the 8 jade swords will fly in the direction of the 9th jade sword. All we need to do is follow the 8 jade swords, and we will be able to find the location of the 9th jade sword." Azure Dragon, Qinyu, Old Freak Three-Eyed, Di Long and Ida all frown. At first they thought that it would be enough to lend the jade swords to Reverend Yen Su. Only now do they know that they will have to fly towards the ninth sword. Does this not mean that they will have to follow the ninth sword? Who knows where the ninth sword is? If it's hidden in some nook at the bottom of the ocean, who knows how many years it'll take to find it? If we rely on the 8 jade swords, it'll be much easier to find the ninth sword. Reverend Yen Su advises. While the others are pondering, Qin Yu laughs in his mind. The most important thing about the ninth sword is the 9 swords immortal mansion. As long as we have a jade sword, we'll be qualified to enter it. I'm not greedy. I'll just go in and take a stroll. What do I need so many jade swords for? Qin Yu immediately says in agreement in a loud voice. Reverend Yen Su, you're thinking for everybody. I agree with you. Otherwise, who knows when we'll get the ninth sword? Hearing Qin Yu's agreement, Reverend Yen Su is delighted at once. The more he looks at Qin Yu, the more he likes him. Qin Yu has always been the first to agree to his proposals. Ida says coldly, I have no objection to this. After considering for a long time, the Blue Dragon Temple's master, Old Freak Three-Eyed and D Long all agree. All right, I'll go back and prepare well. Tomorrow everybody will go directly to Punglai Park. At that time, I'll use my secret technique, and everybody will follow me to find the ninth sword. Reverend Yen Su says smilingly. A day later, several tens people have gathered in Punglai Park of the Stellar Tower. There are at most 4 or 5 people from the 6 powers, and at least 2 or 3 people from the 6 powers. All of them are the core figures of the 6 powers. Today's matter is really too important, so no mistakes must be made. Hey, Reverend Yen Su, can we start now? We're very bored here. Ho Fei says impatiently beside Qin Yu. At the moment, Reverend Yen Su is sitting with legs crossed in midair motionlessly. He is not setting up any formation or doing anything. He just sits there quietly with legs crossed in midair. Ho Fei really cannot stand it anymore, so he says something. Reverend Yen Su opens his eyes. His eyes shoot out a seemingly substantial blue light. Everybody, everything is ready. Please lend me your jade swords, so I can use my secret technique. Nobody knows why Reverend Yen Su was sitting with legs crossed and eyes closed just now. But after hearing what he says, everybody focuses their attention. A jade sword appears in Reverend Yen Su's hand. It is the jade sword he obtained from the Punglai Immortal region. Everybody, please lend me your jade swords. What's the matter? Do you regret it? Reverend Yen Su says smilingly. Even though everybody has agreed to lend him his jade swords, none of them are willing to be the first to do so. Azure Dragon says solemnly. Yen Su, you know how important these jade swords are to us. Don't play any tricks. If something unexpected happens, don't blame us for being ruthless. All right, take them. Azure Dragon reaches out his hand. 2 jade swords shoot out. Reverend Yen Su reaches out his hand. Those 2 jade swords then arrive in his hand. Don't worry, Azure Dragon. How can I dare to play tricks at this moment? I hope you remember what you said. Azure Dragon focuses his attention completely on Reverend Yen Su. Qin Yu says smilingly. Reverend Yen Su, my Stellar Tower's formation was set up by my uncle himself. It's none other than the legendary Great Heavenly Stellar Formation that has been lost for a long time. Once it's really activated, you'll have no way out. After saying so, Qin Yu throws his jade swords to Reverend Yen Su. Even though Qin Yu only introduced the Great Heavenly Stellar Formation, it still had a frightening effect on Reverend Yen Su. Qin Yu is not worried about offending the others at all. Reverend Yen Su, Ida and the others are all cunning figures. They know that there is a super expert behind Qin Yu, so naturally, they do not dare to deceive him casually. The Great Heavenly Stellar Formation? D Long raises his eyebrows. Tower Master Qin Yu, your stellar tower is a paradise if you put it nicely. But it's also a land of despair if you put it bluntly. If you play tricks on us, this will be. Di Jian and Di Su, who have come here together, also look coldly at Qin Yu. Even though they do not dare to avenge the enmity between them and Qin Yu, they are still hostile to Qin Yu. Old Freak Three-Eyed says with a cold laugh. Di Long, shut your mouth. If Qin Yu really wanted to kill you, perhaps your remaining 4 brothers would have already lost their lives that day on the Black Rock Island. Why go through so much trouble? Both Old Freak Three-Eyed and Azure Dragon know that Uncle Lon is formidable, so they are absolutely very good to Qingyu. Don't waste time. Let's quickly search for that 9th jade sword. Ida shouts. Everybody immediately stops talking. One by one, they give the jade swords to Reverend Yin Su. Qingyu, what are you doing? Suddenly Miss Lear's voice is heard. She walks over with a smile, looking at the scene before her eyes, especially those 8 jade swords. Lear slightly closes her eyes for a split second. She then opens them, and the light of wisdom in her eyes brightens. In the Qianlong continent, Li'er mutters to herself in a low voice. Hearing Li'er's voice, Qingyu no longer cares about how Reverend Yin Su uses his secret technique. He turns around and walks towards Li'er saying, Li'er, what are you whispering about? Nothing, Li'er says with a shake of her head. Qingyu leads Li'er into a pavilion. The two of them sit down. Qingyu is simply not worried that Reverend Yin Su will dare to do anything. After all, there are so many people in the Blue Dragon Temple watching. Why should he be afraid that Reverend Yin Su will dare to play tricks? Qingyu, what's that Xiaxianist doing? Li'er points to Reverend Yin Su, who is floating in midair. Qingyu turns around to take a look. Reverend Yin Su is now surrounded by the 8 jade swords. The 8 jade swords are shooting out 8 rays of light, which are completely connected to Reverend Yin Su's body. Reverend Yin Su is making various mysterious hand signs non-stop. He's searching for the 9th jade sword's hiding place. Qingyu does not conceal anything. The 9th jade sword? Li'er slightly frowns. Qingyu says smilingly, there was once an extremely formidable immortal, but he wasn't a loose immortal. He was an immortal who came to the mortal world from the immortal world. Since he was able to come to the mortal world from the immortal world, you'll know how powerful he was. If he could travel from the immortal world to the mortal world by himself, he should be an extremely formidable immortal in the immortal world. Li'er says with a nod. Qingyu says in agreement. And this immortal left behind a 9 swords immortal mansion. The keys are the 9 jade swords. Now we've got 8 of them, and only the last one is left. Now this Reverend Yin Su is using a secret technique to use the 8 jade swords to sense the location of the 9th jade sword. Li'er's eyes brighten. She says, this seems to be very interesting. Qingyu, let's search for the 9th jade sword right away. Shall I go with you to take a look? Qingyu says frowningly. That's good, but when we start searching, the jade swords will definitely fly very fast. You're only at the Jindan stage. You're flying speed. Qingyu has not seen Miss Lear's real flying speed yet. Don't worry. I have a special magic power, which is related to speed. Li'er's face has a hint of pride. Good, then I'd like to see how fast you, a Jindan stage little girl, can fly. Qingyu says jokingly. Li'er says confidently. All right, you'll see when the time comes. While Qingyu and Li'er are chatting, Reverend Yin Su, who is sweating profusely, has finally succeeded in using the secret technique. Various streams of sword energy start to soar into the sky. At the same time, Reverend Yin Su says loudly, everybody, the secret technique is successful. The 8 flying swords will immediately fly towards the 9th jade sword. You only need to follow them. Let's go, Qingyu. Li'er stands up at once. Qingyu also follows Li'er towards Ho Fei's group of people. Sure enough, in a short while, those 8 jade swords unexpectedly start to fly. The group of people immediately start to fly after the flying swords. Don't worry, everybody. I can control the speed of these flying swords. But those who are too weak or too slow can forget about it. The speed of my flying swords is equivalent to the speed of a middle Dongshu stage Xiaxianist. Reverend Yin Su says loudly. The middle Dongshu stage is not a problem for the 6 superpowers. Yezhong, you take care of everything in the Stellar Tower. I'm going to take a trip with the 2nd and 3rd Tower Masters first. Qingyu orders Yezhong beside him. Yes, Tower Master. Yezhong, however, is delighted in his heart. Now that the 3 Tower Masters have left, the Stellar Tower will no longer be his. But Yezhong does not dare to rebel. After all, Qin Yu's and Ho Fei's power has been transmitted to the Stellar Tower. They have even killed several majesties of the 9 Spirits Hall. so their power can be easily imagined. Moreover, Qin Yu has that unfathomable Uncle Lan behind him. 4 people have been dispatched from the stellar tower. They are Qin Yu, Miss Li Ho Fei, who likes bustling places in Shaohei, who wants to follow Qin Yu, the Blue Dragon Temple, the Blue River Province, the Penglai Immortal Region, the 9 Spirits Hall, and the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon each dispatch 4 or 5 people to follow the 8 flying swords extremely fast. After the 8 flying swords leave the stellar tower, they unexpectedly fly straight towards the north. They're unexpectedly still in the north of the stellar tower. That's really surprising, Azure Dragon says with loud laughs. At the moment, the 8 flying swords are flying side by side. Behind them are several tens people. Except for Miss Li each of these several tens people is at least at the middle or late Dongxu stage. Qin Yu flies on his sword, but Li on one side unexpectedly flies in the air. She can easily keep up with the others. Li your speed. Qin Yu is dumbfounded. Flying in the air is a lot slower than flying on a sword. However, Li who is at the Jin Dan stage is actually flying in the air. Her speed is so fast that she can easily keep up with Qin Yu and the others. No wonder Li is so confident. Didn't I tell you earlier that I'm very confident in my speed? Li smiles brilliantly. Ho Fei, who is sitting on a thick black stick on one side, swings his tail, and blinks his eyes a couple of times. He mutters, "Monster, they're all monsters. Sister Li is really a monster. She's already at the Jin Dan stage so fast." Qin Yu can't help but smile. While flying leisurely, the group keeps flying towards the north. As they fly longer and longer, the huge Qianlong continent appears in the distance. Qin Yu's entire body becomes slightly excited. No, it can't be the Qianlong continent, right? At this moment, one image after another flashes through Qin Yu's mind. There is the scene of him watching the stars at the top of Mount Donglan, in the middle of the night, when he was a child. There is the scene of him training hard, under the scolding of his master Zhao Yunxing. There is the scene of him practicing external techniques alone. There is the scene of him killing someone for the first time, as an assassin Lu Xing. There is the scene of him perishing together with Wu Xing next to the 4. In 9 Heavenly Tribulation. There is the scene of him having a decisive battle with Xiang Yang. It's time to go back and see father. Looking at this familiar land, Qin Yu's feelings, which have been hidden deep in his heart, begin to surge. Just like this, several tens of top experts of the overseas Xiuzhen world have come to the Qianlong continent. Chapter 165. The Qianlong continent has a very large population. Qin Yu's group of several tens of people is flying in the air, shuttling through the misty clouds and mist. Down below, smoke is rising from kitchen chimneys, and there are many shadows. Compared to the boundless ocean, the Qianlong continent really has too many people. A town has several tens of thousands of people, and a large city even has several hundreds of thousands of people. There are 3 dynasties on the Qianlong continent. This is the Ming dynasty. Qin Yu takes a deep breath. Even though they are in the clouds and mist, Qin Yu is still able to sense that familiar smell of earth with his keen 6 senses. In the ocean, it is simply impossible to breathe this smell of earth. This is the smell of his hometown, Big Brother. Kuro also looks at Qin Yu with his glittering eyes. Qin Yu cannot help smiling at Kuro. In the past, Qin Yu and Kuro relied on each other, a little boy and a young eagle. Finally, they walked out of the Qianlong continent and set off great waves in the underwater Shuyao world. Nearly 10 years have passed. Qin Yu and Kuro have finally come back. Qin Yu, what's the matter with you? Li asks softly in a low voice. Qin Yu says with a smile, "This is my hometown. My hometown is the Qianlong continent. Now we're standing on the Ming dynasty of the 3 dynasties. My home is in the Qin dynasty." Qin Yu does not conceal anything, and neither does he feel that other people are around him. People from the Blue Dragon Temple, Blue River Province, and the Penglai Immortal Region all take a look at Qin Yu. These people all have extraordinarily good hearing, so naturally they have heard what Qin Yu said. In their eyes, Qin Yu is the master of the Stellar Tower, and an overlord of a region in the underwater Shuyao world. However, Qin Yu is actually from the Qianlong continent. What? Are you curious? Oh, I forgot to tell you that I'm not a demonic beast. I'm a human, said Qin Yu calmly and unhurriedly as he looked at everyone present. The dozens of people flying in the sky were startled. Just a moment ago, when they heard Qin Yu say that he was from the Hidden Dragon continent, they were a little suspicious. Now that Qin Yu had openly said it, it confirmed their guess that Qin Yu was indeed a human. Why are all of you looking at me? Could it be that humans can't live in the underwater Shuya world? Besides, my second brother Ho Fei is a divine beast. Could it be that you're questioning whether I'm qualified to be the master of the Stellar Tower? Qin Yu's eyes sweep over everyone. His eyes are somewhat cold. Azure Dragon laughed loudly and said, "Haha, brother Qin Yu, elder brother, I truly admire you to death. A human like you dares to come to the underwater world of Zooists? But there's actually not much difference between Zooists and Zyuxianists and Xiamoists. No matter what kind of cultivator he belonged to, strength was the most important. Who here dares to question your qualifications as the Pavilion Master? Three-Eyed, do you have any doubts?" Azure Dragon looks at Old Ancestor Three-Eyed. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed's green hair fluttered in the wind. He says smilingly, "What's there to question? Brother Qin Yu's strength is sufficient. Furthermore, not to mention him, his brother Ho Fei is also a divine beast. There's simply no need to doubt their qualifications to be the Star Pavilion's Pavilion Master." Now that the Blue Dragon Temple and the Blue River Province, the other three major underwater Zooist powers, have spoken, who dares to question the Nine Spirits Hall? Tower Master Qin Yu, you're really brave. I admire you, I admire you. Di Long says in a neither yin nor yang manner. Di Jian and the others, however, say nothing. Qin Yu says with a nod as if he has not heard Di Long's sarcasm. This Hidden Dragon continent is my territory, so I can be considered a landlord. Naturally, I have to act as a landlord. First of all, let me introduce the Hidden Dragon continent to everybody. Thank you, Tower Master Qin Yu. Reverend Yen Su says smilingly. Ida also looks at Qin Yu in a friendly manner. Qin Yu says smilingly, "This Hidden Dragon continent is divided into three big dynasties, the Qin dynasty, the Ming dynasty and the Han dynasty. The population of these three dynasties is several billion. Their total population reaches a shocking 10 billion. 10 billion, Azure Dragon exclaims in admiration. There are so many mortals here. The overseas Xiozhen world is much larger than this Hidden Dragon continent in terms of area. But in terms of population, the overseas Xiozhen world only has 10 million. There are less than 10 million cultivators in the overseas cultivation world. But there are almost 10 billion mortals. Reverend Yen Su says with an indifferent smile. There are so many mortals, but they're too weak. They're simply not on the same level as us Zyuxianists. Reverend Yen Su is right. 10 billion, humph, if we really want to go on a killing spree, we only need 100 Zyuxianists to wipe out this continent. A large man from the Purple Flame Devilish Dungeon says. This man has long blood-red hair. Ida says with a cold humph. Jiao, if you want your Yanma school to be wiped out, go ahead. This time Ida has brought Jiao and Situ Shui with him. Both of them have reached the early Kongming stage. In the past it was also them who were locked up in prison by Ida for 3 whole years. I'm just saying, Jiao says with a humph. Qin Yu continues. There are many mortals on this Hidden Dragon continent, but there are also many demonic beasts. In the east of this Hidden Dragon continent, there's a boundless wilderness where there are a large number of demonic beasts. The deeper you go, the more formidable the demonic beasts are. Perhaps there are even Dujia stage and Deshang stage demonic beasts in the depths of this wilderness. Qin Yu is not shooting at random when he says this. In the past, Lei Wei left a book to describe this wilderness. Even Lei Wei does not dare to go deep into this wilderness. From this, one can judge how formidable the demonic beasts in the depths of this wilderness are. After all, Lei Wei is an expert who can kill a Deshang stage Zyuxianist. Dujia stage and Deshang stage? The faces of Azure Dragon, Old Ancestor Three-Eyed, Reverend Yin Su, Ida and the others all change color greatly. If these demonic beasts are at the Dujia stage and Deshang stage, They will simply be no match for them. Brother Chinyu, are you sure? You can't joke about this matter. Azure Dragon says to Chinyu solemnly. He has also heard that there are demonic beasts in the hidden dragon continent's wilderness. But the overseas Xiozhen world has always looked down on mortals on the hidden dragon continent, so they think that there are only some common demonic beasts in the wilderness. Who would have thought that today Chinyu would say that there are Dujia stage and Deshang stage demonic beasts in the wilderness? Of course I'm sure. Chinyu says solemnly. This matter is described in a book left behind by my school. This is indeed described in a book left behind by Chinyu's school. But when Azure Dragon and the others hear it, they immediately associate Chinyu's school with Uncle Lan. If that's the case, then it's probably true. Azure Dragon and the others become serious. The most powerful demonic beast in the overseas Xiozhen world is Azure Dragon, an early Kongming stage divine beast, which is equivalent to an early Dujia stage Xiuxianist. However, there are Dujia stage and Deshang stage demonic beasts in the wilderness. Generally, the top demonic beasts are divine beasts. If they're Dujia stage and Deshang stage divine beasts, then, thinking of this, Azure Dragon's heart trembles. All of a sudden, the group of people from the overseas cultivation world began to worry. Haha, don't worry too much, everybody. The deeper we go into the wilderness, the stronger the demonic beasts will be. As long as we don't go too deep and don't provoke those formidable demonic beasts, won't we be fine? Why are you so worried? Chinyu persuades them. A bunch of cowards. Ida says with a cold humph. Azure Dragon gives him a cold look. Ida, bravado is the work of an idiot. Even though Azure Dragon is the #1 expert of the overseas Xiozhen world, Ida is after all a late Kongming stage Xiamoist, so there is not much difference between them in power. Moreover, Ida's attack methods are also very strange. He is not afraid of this Azure Dragon at all. Don't make trouble, everybody. We've come to search for the 9th Jade Sword, not to fight demonic beasts of the wilderness. Reverend Yen Su says smilingly. As soon as he says so, they all become relaxed at once. Haha, that's right. What are you worried about? We're just searching for the 9th Jade Sword. How formidable the demonic beasts in the depths of the wilderness are has nothing to do with us. Luca says with loud laughs on one side of old ancestor three-eyed. Everybody talks all the way while flying extremely fast. The Qin dynasty. We've arrived at the Qin dynasty. Qinyu's eyes glitter with various colors. Qinyu, you said your hometown is in the Qin dynasty. Have we arrived home? Li Er says smilingly. If you've arrived home, go home first. Perhaps your family will be very happy to see you. Qinyu looks at one city after another and shakes his head, saying, My father and the others should be in the Qin dynasty, but I don't know where they are at the moment. Perhaps I only know where my second brother is. Qin Zheng, the current emperor of the Qin dynasty, naturally has to stay in the imperial palace unless something major happens. Don't worry, brother Qinyu. Let's search for the 9th Jade Sword first. We'll have a result very soon. It'll only take a day or two. After a day or two, it won't be too late for you to go back and reunite with your family. Azure Dragon says with loud laughs. Suddenly he frowns and says, Qinyu, how many years have you been practicing in your school? Are your mortal parents still alive? Qinyu is startled. Blue Dragon Temple's master, you're wrong. My father is also a Xiuxianist. Qinyu explains. Azure Dragon immediately understands. They continue to fly straight towards the east. We've already passed the 3 eastern region counties, but we're still going east. Could it be the 9th Jade Sword is in the wilderness? Qinyu says frowningly. Hearing Qinyu's words, the several tens people flying in the sky all frown. Everyone looked at the 8 Jade Swords. The 8 Jade Swords flew straight to the east without any hesitation. As time goes by, everybody has already flown over the 3 eastern region counties. As soon as they enter the border of the wilderness, they clearly feel the increase in the density of spiritual energy. The wilderness seems to be a good place. Azure Dragon praises. Qinyu says loudly at once. Everybody, the demonic beasts of the wilderness are not to be underestimated. Last time I met 2 divine beasts in the periphery. Everybody must be careful. 2 divine beasts. Azure Dragon frowns. Divine beasts are exceptionally gifted, and their cultivation speed is extremely fast. There are only 2 divine beasts in the periphery. How many divine beasts are there in the wilderness? Since when have divine beasts become so common? Ho Fei says, Kaka Azure Dragon, are you scared? But the demonic beasts of the wilderness are indeed much denser than those of the overseas Xiozhen world. Everybody be careful. Everybody cannot help but start to slow down. After all, this is the wilderness. Oh, Qin Yu discovered that prairie. In the past, he met the dragon Rocky Lion on that prairie. Not far from the dragon Rocky Lion is the divine beast Hongwuan. However, at the moment Qin Yu simply cannot detect its existence. That grassland is also not like before where there are no other demonic beasts. At the moment, the grassland is full of ferocious demonic beasts. Where did the dragon Rocky Lion go? Qin Yu is very doubtful. It has only been 10 years, but both the dragon Rocky Lion and the Hongwuan have unexpectedly disappeared. Suddenly, what's wrong with the jade swords? Everybody notices that the 8 flying swords have unexpectedly started to tremble, as if they have been affected by something. The 8 jade swords seem to want to fly in different directions. At the same time, the trembling sound becomes louder and louder. Reverend Yen Su shouts at once, "Everybody, this wilderness is very mysterious. My secret method has lost its effect. Everybody, quickly withdraw your flying swords." Immediately, everybody hurriedly withdraws their jade swords. "Yen Su, what's actually going on?" Azure Dragon shouts. Reverend Yen Su also shakes his head doubtfully, saying, "Actually, I don't know what's going on either. Normally, these 8 jade swords should fly in the same direction until they reach the 9th jade sword. But just now, these 8 flying swords actually tried to fly in different directions. This is outrageous. The 9th jade sword is 1, so it must be in one place. Why did the 8 jade swords fly in different directions?" As soon as everybody hears this, they all realize that something is wrong. The 9th jade sword must be in one direction. But why did the 8 jade swords fly in different directions? Now the only way is to summon all Xiationists and hurry to this place. At the same time, they have to use their holy senses to search the area. Three-Eyed says coldly. At the moment, both he and Azure Dragon feel very helpless. Because the Stellar Tower is the closest to the Qianlong continent, the 2 caves that Azure Dragon and Three-Eyed gave Qin Yu in the past are the closest to the Stellar Tower and the closest to the Qianlong continent. The wilderness is vast, filled with forests, deep mountains, and ravines. If these several tens Xiationists personally search for the jade swords, who knows how long they will have to wait, so they have no choice but to rely on their subordinates. Azure Dragon, Old Ancestor Three-Eyed, Dilong, Ida and Reverend Yin Su take out their transmitters almost at the same time. All of them start to give orders to their subordinates and start to assemble their forces towards the Qianlong continent. From now on, large numbers of the overseas Xiozhen world's forces are gathering towards the Qianlong continent. Naturally, there will be a storm. "Everybody, I'm going home now. This Qin dynasty is my home. If anyone wants to visit it, I can arrange it for you," Qin Yu says smilingly to everybody. Immediately, this group of top figures of the overseas Xiozhen world all say goodbye to Qin Yu and say that they will definitely come to visit Qin Yu when they have time, so that they can have a good tour of the Qianlong continent. Afterwards, Qin Yu, Li Er, Ho Fei and Kuro fly towards the Qin dynasty. "Father, I'm back." Qin Yu's face is filled with uncontrollable excitement. Li Er says smilingly, "Qin Yu, look at you. You're smiling like a flower. Right. How are you going to introduce us to your father when you see him?" "Fei and Xiaoyu are my brothers, of course. As for you, big sister? No, it's better. My father is very wise, so he should be able to connect the dots. I don't think I need to say it. I'm a bit thin-skinned," Qin Yu says deliberately. Afterwards, Qin Yu speeds up at once and rushes towards her extremely fast like a beam of light. Li Er is ashamed and angry. She moves her feet and chases after him in an instant. "Let go of me. It hurts." Qin Yu's cry of pain rises. Chapter 166. In the Star Pavilion, Yezhong was being served by the maids. He was eating the fruits offered by each cave residents leisurely and comfortably. Suddenly, Yezhong frowned. He took out a messenger token and scanned it with his soul sense. Yezhong, let Yin Rui, Liang Tan, Wu Yan and Su Dong. The 4 guardians take 10 guard brigades, a total of 10,000 people, and rush to the Qianlong continent as soon as possible. Seeing Qin Yu send this order, Yezhong got up quickly. Yezhong first replied to Qin Yu, and then hurriedly ordered loudly, "Summon all protectors and guard captains to the Sun Moon Great Hall immediately. There must be no delay." Zhuangzhong shouts loudly at once. Then, he hurriedly changes his clothes and rushes to the Sun Moon Palace at an extremely fast speed. In the Sun Moon Hall, the 8 great protectors and the 30 guard captains were all gathered in the main hall. Yezhong looked solemn and said loudly, "The pavilion master has ordered." Immediately, the 8 guardians and 30 guard captains bowed and waited for the order. Yin Rui, Liang Tan, Wu Yan and Su Dong, the 4 guardians, lead the 1st to the 10th Guard Brigades with 10,000 people. Go to the Qianlong continent quickly and wait for the pavilion master's order. Don't delay. Set off at once. Zhuangzhong shouted sternly. Yes, sir. Yin Rui and the other guardians, as well as the 10 guard captains, bowed and responded. Then they turned around and prepared to set off. Yezhong's group also walked out of the Star Pavilion and stood at the gate. At this moment, groups of people were flying out of the guard accommodation area. For a moment, the whole bottom of the water was densely packed with people. It was the 10 brigades. In an instant, the 10 long lines were standing in the air. The 10 guard captains stood at the front of the 10 brigades. The 4 guardians were at the front. Set off. Yin Rui was the leader of the 8 guardians, so she was naturally the leader of this operation. Following the order, under the leadership of the 4 guardians, the 10 brigades of 10,000 people broke out of the water and rushed north directly on their swords. 10,000 people. They were densely packed all over the sky. On the Qianlong continent, several Jin Dan stage Xiaotianists were called Shangxian, but now the Star Pavilion sent out a 10,000-person team, led by the 4 guardians, who were all at the Dongxi stage or above. Qianlong continent, Qin dynasty, Shangqing County. Shangqing County was originally Bachu County, but since there was a change of dynasty, Bachu County naturally had to change its name. Because the imperial palace in the capital city was vast, Qinda did not want to spend a lot of money and resources to build another imperial palace. Therefore, he decided to use the capital city in the capital city. Shangqing County is vast, and the capital is its center. Flying along the Longwu River, Heiyu suddenly spoke. Heiyu had just learned the ventriloquism technique. Ventriloquism wasn't a powerful secret skill, and it wasn't in Heiyu's inherited memories. He had learned it after talking with Yin Rui, the law protector of the Stellar Pavilion. Big brother, do you still remember this place? Kuro says using ventriloquism. They have been flying along the River Wu for a long time. This is the place where Qin Yu, Xiao He and Xiangyang fought. Of course I remember. Qin Yu says with a sigh. On a full moon night above the River Wu, you and I fought Xiangyang together. It was also because of this battle that our Qin clan completely destroyed the Xiang clan and finally gained control of the world and was able to change the dynasty. Ho Fei blinks his eyes twice and says strangely, What? Change the dynasty? You even fought Xiangyang? Big brother, tell me about it. It sounds like a legend. Kuro says grimly. On a full moon night above the River Wu, Lu Xing broke through the sky, and the full moon hung high in the sky. Humph, humph monkey, the great achievements of Big Brother and I are not something you can imagine. Ho Fei is immediately so angry that his eyes blaze. Mixed hairy bird, what are you being so arrogant for? Haven't you only been following Big Brother since you were little? If I had followed Big Brother earlier, I would have been able to smash that Xiangyang into a meat patty by myself with a stick. Kuro gives a humph and turns his head away. He does not even look at Ho Fei. Ho Fei cannot help becoming furious. Qin Yu says smilingly, Fei Xiaohei, stop messing around. At that time, it was actually nothing much. It's just that Xiangyang stopped our Qin clan's army at the most critical moment and even threatened to destroy our Qin clan's bloodline. That's why Xiao He and I took action to get rid of this obstacle. However, while they are talking, several thousand li have passed, and Qin Yu's group of 4 arrives outside the capital. It is currently early in the morning. The city gates are wide open, and the peddlers have already set up their stalls. Qin Yu's group of 4 stands in the air above the imperial palace. With a sweep of his spiritual sense, Qin Yu discovers his second brother and big brother. Qin Yu says in a low voice, "It's currently the morning court session. Second brother and big brother are both in the main hall. Let's wait for a while." "What are we waiting for? Let's just activate the invisibility restriction and take a stroll in the main hall first. I don't think those mortals will be able to see through us." Hou Fei says unconcernedly, "This invisibility restriction only deceives the eyes. A Zionist spiritual sense can see through it." Li Er is also a little excited. Morning court session in the imperial palace. "Good Qin Yu, I haven't seen you before. Let's go." Qin Yu has no choice but to agree. "Okay, but I'll tell you one thing. Those ministers and generals are all mortals. Don't make fun of them. When you're in the main hall, you'll have to behave yourself." "Kaka, don't worry." Hou Fei is the first to rush down. At the same time, his body flashes, and he disappears directly in broad daylight. But for Zionists, they can still easily discover Hou Fei's figure diving down extremely fast with their spiritual sense. Afterwards, Qin Yu, Li Er and Kuro also rush down. In the main hall of the imperial palace, Qin Yu is sitting high on the emperor's throne, naturally giving off the majesty of an emperor. The civil officials and generals are standing on both sides of the main hall. Qin Feng, Qin Yu's big brother, is standing at the top of one line. Qin Feng is not only a general but also a prince. Naturally, he occupies the first position. "Your Majesty, Zhenyang County has an urgent report. A while ago, it rained heavily, and the Wu River burst its banks. Su Lingcheng, Lan City and several other cities in Zhenyang County were hit by serious floods. More than 1 million victims were displaced." Hearing the minister's report, Qin Zheng frowns deeply. "Do you have the details?" Qin Zheng says coldly. At the moment he is in a very bad mood. The minister immediately says, "Here are the details of the disasters in several cities and their territories." The minister then takes out an envelope from his long sleeve. Afterwards, the eunuch receives the envelope and passes it directly to Qin Zheng. Standing in a corner of the main hall, Qin Yu can't help showing a faint smile as he watches his second brother handle state affairs. For Zionists, mortal affairs are rather distant, but Qin Yu has only been away from home for about 10 years, so he still has the heart of a mortal. What's important now is first, to settle the victims and second, to prevent floods and disasters. We can either take advantage of the situation or plug the gaps. Qin Zheng quickly gives the order. He sends out the imperial envoys, the 200,000 troops of Zhenyang County, and the 300,000 reserve troops, to carry out the unified flood control and disaster relief. Orders such as food and clothing for the disaster relief are also issued very quickly. Court is dismissed. The eunuch's sharp voice rises. Afterwards, all the officials leave the main hall one by one. Big brother, second brother. Qin Yu directly speaks to Qin Feng and Qin Zheng through holy sense communication in their minds. At the moment, Qin Zheng, who is still thinking about the flood, gets a shock, then becomes ecstatic. Qin Feng, who was about to leave, also turns around and walks into the main hall. With a flash of light, Qin Yu dispels the invisibility restriction on him and appears in the main hall. Xiao Yu. Both Qin Zheng and Qin Feng look at Qin Yu, who suddenly appears in the main hall, in disbelief. At the moment, Qin Yu's appearance has not changed much compared to when he left the Qianlong continent, except that he is more mature. His eyes are more profound, and his body naturally emits a pressure, which is naturally possessed by a superior. The chief eunuch, who was just about to shout assassins, swallows his words when he sees the expressions of Emperor Qin Zheng and Prince Qin Feng. Big brother, second brother. Qin Yu can't suppress the ecstasy on his face. Qin Zheng rushes directly to the main hall. Afterwards, The three brothers embrace each other very passionately. Haha, Xiaoyu, you've been away for 10 years. During these 10 years, we didn't have any news about you. We were so worried about you. Haha. Qin Zheng laughs heartily at the moment. Obviously, he is very excited and happy. Qin Feng also hugs Qin Yu tightly. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. 10 years, it's been 10 years. I'm back now, aren't I? Qin Yu also laughs heartily. At the moment, Li Er, Kuro and Hou Fei also dispels the invisibility restriction and appear in front of Qin Feng and Qin Zheng. This startles Qin Feng and Qin Zheng. Of course they know Xiao He, but they don't know Hou Fei and Li Er. Xiaoyu they are. Qin Zheng asks doubtfully. Qin Yu introduces smilingly. You must know Xiao He. This is, Kaka, I'm Hou Fei. Qin Yu is my big brother. Even though you two brats are my big brother's second brother, and big brother, you're too weak. Forget it. I'll reluctantly acknowledge you as my brothers. Hou Fei shakes his head and says. Qin Feng says smilingly. Xiaoyu, your brother's temper is really very straightforward. Very straightforward. As a general, when Qin Feng was in the army, he already knew many straightforward men. Those people only recognize strength. They don't care how high your rank is. Only when your strength surpasses theirs will they believe you. This is sister-in-law? Qin Zheng looks at Li Er and says. Qin Yu, however, deliberately remains silent for a while. Only when Li Er seems to be about to go crazy does Qin Yu say smilingly. Second brother. This is my junior sister Li Er. She's my junior sister, not your sister-in-law. Not your sister-in-law. I understand what you mean, Xiaoyu. Qin Feng has a look of sudden realization. She's not your sister-in-law now, but she'll be your sister-in-law in the future. Am I right, Xiaoyu? And, this is your junior sister, Miss Li Er? Li Er stares at Qin Yu. Qin Yu, remember this. That ferocious voice rises in Qin Yu's mind. Qin Yu, however, smiles contentedly. He knows that Li Er is thin-skinned. At most, she would be a bit witty in front of people she is familiar with. However, in front of people she is unfamiliar with, she will not flip out. Big brother, second brother, don't tease my junior sister. Right, where's father and Uncle Feng? Qin Yu says smilingly. Qin Zheng says at once. Father and Uncle Feng are doing closed-door training. You've come at a bad time. But they should come out in about half a year. Last time, father said he would do closed-door training for a year. Almost half a year has passed. Qin Yu is slightly regretful that he did not see his father as soon as he came back. It doesn't matter. Now that I have my own territory in the overseas Xiuzhen world, I'm not in a hurry to go back. It's fine even if I live here for 100 to 200 years. Qin Yu says smilingly. Given Qin Yu's fastest speed, it will only take him several days to go from the Qianlong continent to the Stellar Tower. Especially when Qin Yu's power improves again, and he overcomes the 4 in 9 heavenly tribulation. Qin Yu will be able to go from the Stellar Tower to the Qianlong continent in 1 day. Haha, that's good. We three brothers don't have to be separated. Qin Zheng says with a loud laugh. Then he suddenly remembers something and says, Xiaoyu, do you know that big brother is about to undergo the 4 in 9 heavenly tribulation? Oh. Qin Yu is delighted and immediately scans with his holy sense. At the moment, Qin Feng has reached the peak of the Xiantian realm, and is indeed about to undergo the tribulation at any time. 4 in 9 heavenly tribulation, big brother. You have a middle-grade holy weapon, so it'll be absolutely easy for you to overcome the 4 in 9 heavenly tribulation. Haha. Second brother, you should also practice hard, so that we three brothers won't have to be separated. But why haven't you reached the Xiantian level yet, second brother? With a sweep of his holy sense, Qin Yu naturally discovers Qin Zheng's level of practice. Qin Zheng says helplessly, I'm not good at practice. I don't have any talent, so there's nothing I can do. What do you mean you don't have talent? At any rate, Qin Yu is one of the 6 leaders of the overseas Xiuzhen world. If even his own relative cannot reach the Xiantian level, he will be too useless. Don't worry. I'll refine a cauldron of pills sometime, and let you enter the Xiantian level directly. Qin Yu has obtained that treasure-storing palace. There are extremely many materials in it. If you can't wait, I'll ask Reverend Yin Su and the others for several foundation-building pills. Qin Yu says in an unconcerned manner. In the Xiuzhen world, important disciples of schools will generally take foundation-building pills at the beginning to build their foundations early and reach the Xiantian level directly. For internal practitioners, the Xiantian level is very difficult. But for Zayashinists, it is just the beginning. Given Qin Yu's current status, he can obtain foundation-building pills at will. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.